Oh, I thought it was 6:30. Okay, it is Thursday, July 25th, 2024, and this is a Student Services Committee meeting. We are located at the School District of Menominee Falls. Menominee Falls of the Village Hall Upper Level Conference Room 334445. There is a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. A live broadcast will be streamed on the school district's YouTube page, and to watch the recorded meeting, please visit our School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes.
All right, welcome everyone. I do need a motion to approve minutes from the June 11th committee meeting.
A motion.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. All right, our first guest of honor tonight is Nikki Williams, the Director of School Nutrition. Thank you for taking the time to.
Sarah, you need to vote on the, just because a motion second,
Oh, I'm
just brings it to the
sorry.
table.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So back to the approval of the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion is passed. All right, thank you. So yes, Nikki Williams, Director of School Nutrition. We haven't actually had, a full scope of everything going on in the cafeteria, or I haven't since being on the board. So thanks for taking the time to come in here and just kind of let us know what's going on and your, vision and experience, and I'm excited to hear about it.
Okay. So yeah, I usually do this yearly, I feel like. It's been a yearly thing. So I'm kind of used to it. Where am I? Okay. So these are just the things we're gonna talk about, the logo, the staffing and participation and purchasing. I tried to include everything that we talked about, and hopefully this covers most of it. So last year, we decided that we needed to start branding school nutrition. So we tried to figure out how to make a logo. It took us a little while, but now we have it. And I do have these little stickers for all of you, for your water bottles here. We're gonna be handing these out at the back to school fair. So, you wanna?
How did you come about with that logo? Kinda cool.
So I played, it was a lot of playing around, actually.
So does anyone catch it first?
Did you catch it? Dan did right away.
I caught it right away.
Cool.
The S in the end?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
And they're flames, which is like,
Yeah.
Charbroiled, grilled.
So I tried to hang with like that Phoenix. And I didn't want anything, cause all the schools, so when you go to the website, everything is logoed in kind of that circle. And I wanted to kind of follow that theme through what we were doing in our department, but also have something that was a little bit more our own, so. That was that. The staff really like it. I think it's cool that we have it, so that's kind of nice. Alright, so staffing, at this time we have 6 vacancies. I think when I was reading through the presentation I did last year, I was in the same place. And we have done several interviews, are hoping to hire 4 of those candidates. I will say going into this school year, we're a little nervous. Even with 6, we're pretty tight. And then when lunch schedules change, right now it's really just the elementaries. And times shift and you're doing breakfast, it extends our day a little bit further than we are used to, and then we've gotta figure out how to staff that, and adding more staff isn't always the answer, so we're trying to figure out creatively how to make those things work, which means likely it's a really good time that I'm here, because once the school year starts, me and then Jess Bleskin is my manager and Jody Muse is my elementary lead. So just because you want background, before I started, we didn't have anyone that was really overseeing elementary schools. There wasn't anyone assigned to like check in, see how things were going. And I thought that was a problem. So we got Jody, and now she is in charge of just checking out, making sure everything's running well, guidelines are being followed, processes are working or not working or whatever, and then she handles a lot of the staff in those 4 schools. And then we have a lead at the middle school, and there's typically a lead at the high school. Right now we don't have one, but Jess Luskin is my manager, so she's gonna take over. She did most of last year, and beginning of this year, she's gonna take over the lead in that school. Because finding a lead is difficult, but finding staff is also difficult, so
Okay.
we would prefer to have staff that we can train before we had to bring in a lead that would have to take care of all of those things, when she already knows what expectations are and she knows how we like things run, to train those people first and then bring in a lead and then train the lead instead of trying to train a lead and new staff at the same time. So that's kind of the plan for the high school moving forward. Which means I will likely be in a school a lot, which is fine. But it gives me less time to put together presentations and do all those things. And it's where I like to be anyway, so it's fine. So that's where we're trying to get creative. We did this summer, we've switched away from, and I know this sounds somewhat counterintuitive, in the past, the facilities department has cleaned our kitchens, and that has proven to be a little bit more difficult than we like. So we're gonna move into next year where we're gonna write processes that we're gonna be cleaning our own kitchens. And we feel like we're just gonna be able to take ownership of our own spaces then and get the product that we want. Instead of relying on another department and another director and another manager to handle the things that we need, we'll just be able to handle it in-house, which we think is gonna be a really good shift. And then we did our school nutrition staff, because they typically do not work summers. I was afraid that we would lose staff over the summers because they don't have work to do.
Sure.
So I was able to get staff to come in over the summer to help clean the kitchens. And the deep cleaning that's being done in the kitchens, I don't think I've ever seen anything so amazing. So we're really super excited about just the product that we're getting with staff in the kitchens, that work in the kitchens, cleaning their own spaces. And then they're able to reorganize, they're able to, do we really need this? Do we not need this? What should we do? And it's like the hood vents in the kitchens are so clean right now that I'm like, this is so great. The ovens, and then typically custodial wouldn't clean our equipment. And then staff would have to do that after the school year was over, before the school year started, but now because they're in there and they're cleaning, they're just doing it all at the same time, so it's working out really nice.
So I think the priority for the vacancies would have to go to the elementary schools, right? Just because high schoolers and middle schoolers can kind of go through the line somewhat on their own.
Kind of, but no.
Okay.
If you look at this, so that'll lead kind of into this slide with participation.
Mhm.
Our participation at the middle school and the high school is double the elementaries, so you're serving more students. So like, where we can serve, in the elementaries, we need 3 staff. We could probably get away with 2.
Okay.
It makes it a little difficult because you need somebody running a register. And the person on the register has to understand meal components, which we're gonna talk about later. So you need somebody trained that knows how to run not only a register, but understand meal components for students. So you really need 3 in those schools, but 2 can work, especially like Shady Lane, where they're serving, this year they did 27,980. A little bit easier to manage, but then they're K2s. So they struggle a little bit more in the lunch line, it takes them a little bit longer because they're just not as old as the older kids.
Mhm.
At the high school, I think there used to be, at the high school now we're running with maybe 5 or 6 staff, there used to be 11 to 14. So I have cut back on what I think our needs are in the kitchen, but we also have more to do at the high school. So in the elementaries where we offer a hot option and then a second alternate, or sometimes a third alternate, at the high school we're offering we have to run 2 main lines, a grab and go line. We do like a cold grab and go, which is usually peanut butter and jellies, and then a salad, a wrap, or a sub. So there's more food that we have to prep. And then on days that they can self-serve, it's really nice. But if you let a high schooler self-serve orange chicken, you're gonna run out
Pretty
really
quick.
quickly.
Yeah.
And because we have standardized recipes for everything we have to do, and everything has to be measured to a certain amount in order to meet our goals, our recommendations and standards for the government. So if they overserve and then aren't paying for it, we're actually exceeding the calories, fat, and sodium intake that's required in a meal. So we kind of have to control all of those things too. There's so much in that.
It's a balance.
Yeah. So the high school, we actually have more staff. Middle school has 6 lunches without breaks in between. So not really without any breaks. The first 2 lunches are within like 20 minutes, and then there's like a 10-minute window, and then there's another group, and then there's another 10-minute window, and then the third group. And the issue there is when you have salad bars and food that you have to replenish, you need staff to be able to do those things, and then like cleaning tables and making sure we don't like the salad bar not to look fresh when the next group comes in, we want it to look clean. So there's a little bit more work in that, and now this year Valley View is going to 6 lunches. So now I'm trying to figure out, okay, so we might need 4 staff there instead of 3 staff, because there's just that much more work to do when you have more lunches.
Question on the breakfast. I see from 22-23 to 23-24, it dropped by about 55%. Is that the
So,
free breakfast?
22-23 breakfast was still free.
Okay,
And then 23-24 went back to paid. I will say though, 23-24, that 59,000, I actually planned to do about 20,000 breakfasts.
oh wow.
So we exceeded what our thoughts
Sure.
were on what our breakfast participation would be. I think a lot of that came down to at the high school, starting in January, when we kind of went back in to take over how things were operating at the high school. We kind of zhuzhed up the line a bit and did some different things. And the high schoolers ended up participating more after January at the high school than they did prior to that.
So do you anticipate this to go up this year then, a little bit?
Fingers crossed. I mean, that's always the hope.
Good.
Interestingly enough, high school is gonna be low participation for breakfast and lunch because it's open campus for lunch. So we lose all of those students when they're able to leave the high school. So that's why that number is lower for the high school. And breakfast, I mean, they're driving in, they can stop at Starbucks, they can go,
Yeah.
they can do whatever. Interestingly though, for me, when I look at these numbers, Shady Lane's numbers for breakfast and Ben Franklin's, those being K2 schools, it's interesting to me that their participation is always lower for breakfast. Because they're younger, it seems backwards to me, and I haven't really figured out why. Our goal is, if Jess Bluskin and I have moments this year to go out and watch like that before school recess and see what's different at those K2s compared to the 3-5s to figure out why those kids don't, or maybe they just don't want to,
Yeah, so
or
there's a-
they're eating at home. I don't know what the answer is to that.
My guess would be that because the middle school and the high school start so early, that they don't have time to eat breakfast. I mean, even my kids wait till the last second to leave, and then they don't get there and don't have time.
But then those
Riverside
same,
But the
and
elementary,
Valley View all start at the same time too, and that price lunch.
yeah. So that's what's weird is Riverside and Valley View, those parents
Yeah.
drop off at one and then they
Right.
drop off at the other.
Right.
So why, there shouldn't be
or
that.
they eat in a
It's
car
just
or something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's the same parent, right?
Right.
Hopefully, like, or not, I don't know, but like, it's just weird and I don't know the answer to that. But that's one of the things that I find. And I will say prior to, I mean, COVID years aren't fair, right? I mean, when everything was free, it's not even fair to compare. and I started the year after. So there's really not numbers while I was here that I can compare to, other than I know from what I've researched is we were more in the 30s and 40s in some areas for participation, so I know that we've increased participation. And I also know like when during COVID you were at 60, so 55, 56, 58, those are pretty high participation numbers for lunch. And typically people look at lunch more than they look at breakfast just because you have a captive audience, they can't go anywhere, they have to either bring up lunch from home or eat at school, so. Any other questions about participation?
And just the staffing seems like a pretty big problem that we need to handle pretty quickly.
From history, so these reports used to be given in finance committee, so I know a little bit over the last couple of years.
Yep.
It's difficult to find the right skill set, the right talent, and then to pass the background check, and I know some of the staff has been brought on, and then quickly there's some turnover, so it's been a pervasive problem for the last year as hiring in general is a tough spot, so I would just say in the event that you can talk with human resources to say, is there any sort of, and you guys have probably looked at this in terms of, you know, is there stay bonuses, is there recruiting bonuses, is there some other little intangible that we can give them to be able to get that engagement and talk with, I'm sure, Leah and the team to figure out what that
Well, and I
looks like.
think the other problem is like there's this misconception that you can just go to McDonald's and make $17 an hour. That's like a high-end wage at McDonald's, but that's what they advertise. So when we offer a wage that's under that, people are like, well, I can go to McDonald's and make that. You can, maybe, but I have staff that came here that worked at Chick-fil-A and were making 10. So there's just, it's that marketing that those big businesses do that looks very different than what we can show, right, so.
So I had a question, and remember 2 years ago when I actually came and I sat in Tinderay and met with your team, and I think you had given me some of the concerns you had, and I think that's when you actually just first started about were you able to since then streamline the processes? Because at that point, when I got sat down with your staff, we were saying that how the structure of the nutrition team in each building was a little discombobulated because there wasn't any cohesion. Has that actually improved since then? Because I think that was the challenge that you had is whatever functioned at one building wasn't the same at another building. That was just really odd for me to actually hear that. Like each building ran their own way.
Yeah,
Or their own.
they did, yep.
So were you able to now streamline it?
Well, I think with hiring Jody as an elementary lead, who's in charge of all those elementaries, and that's kind of one of the things she watches, just to make sure that we have consistency across all the schools. Cause you don't want somebody to go to Shady Lane and have one lunch, but then go to the middle school and find out it's a completely different lunch.
Yeah.
That's weird to me, like that shouldn't be. So we have gotten there. There have been challenges, just because when I walked into this position, you need to have standardized recipes in order for everything to work properly. There weren't many of those, and then we've changed product. So those kinds of things take time, but we do have, I would say as a team, we're much stronger as a team. We've done more team building things, and I think they had more meetings in the past, but I don't know that they had content that made a difference. And I don't know that the accountability was there behind those things in order to make what needed to happen. We spent a lot of time actually this year writing out, so you have job descriptions when you hire somebody, and then you have job duties in the kitchens. And what we've tried to do is make sure that when we write out job duties, that they look similar from school to school. So if somebody walks from one school to another and they see the job duties, they're like, oh yeah, I got this. Not only that, because there weren't job duties in the past, if I walked into a kitchen and I had to fill in, I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? 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 What's next? What's next? Now it's just laid out. Everybody has job duties and they have to, we've been accused of micromanaging, but it's really not about micromanaging. It's about having processes that work and are efficient. So a lot of that has changed, but it is a slower, it takes a lot of work and we're still tweaking them. So now, because lunch schedules change, now all those job duties, because they're kind of written with guided times, we have to change those job duties this summer to meet the new lunch time.
Because I know that was one of the big concerns.
It was a big concern, yeah, and it's very different.
Everything else.
Yeah, and when we talk about nutrition, I can tell you a little bit more about like some of the things that we've changed. That when I was told things before, I was like, wait, what? And now, because of the way the menus are written and the way we manage things, we are actually offering more options, not necessarily the way people think that we're offering them, but in ways that are just better for the student. And I think on the end helps save a little bit of time too.
I was just curious about that, that there was any progress made since 2 years
A
ago.
lot.
Good.
A lot.
Good to hear.
Lot of work. I will say, members of my team, I don't really take credit for any of it. It's not me at all. Like, I will help, I guide, but the members of my team have put in tons of time to make sure this works. And they really, like, they take ownership of it, they appreciate it, they like it, they understand it, and now they're all on board to do what they need to do to get it right. Okay, so there was a question about purchasing, so this is where I'll talk a little bit about what was happening in the past, because I think in order to talk about what we need to do in the future and what's happening now, we need to talk about where we came from. And I was just at DPI training last week for 3 days in Green Bay, and when I started here, we were part of a buying co-op, and I wanted to put the name of it in here, but I can't remember the name of it. And after my first year, we moved to a different buying co-op. So we're part of WISNIC, which is a 56 school district co-op. And before, the co-op was a little bit smaller, and when I went to their first meeting, what I realized is a majority of their leaders were retiring. And it felt like things were gonna get a little scary. And I was nervous about that, so I decided to go, I was part of this other co-op when I was in Mayville, so I decided to switch and go back to the co-op that I was with. Because I just knew their structure, and coming into this position, another reason was just kind of it felt more like home to me, and it was more familiar, and I was more comfortable with it. So I'll talk a little bit about that co-op in the next slide. So, and previously we're using our commodity dollars to buy state processed food. And that's not a bad thing, it does limit you on what you can purchase. So when you have commodity dollars that the government gives you, you can purchase state purchased food, or you can directly divert your dollars. State processed food, so whatever the state says is going to be your chicken nugget for that year is the chicken nugget you have to buy. Whatever applesauce is the applesauce, whatever, so you're limited in what you can purchase. The pricing is decent, but you're limited in what you can purchase and where your dollars go. And then we also, when I started, a lot of the food we were serving was prepackaged. I would say, I don't wanna say 70%, but I think we were close. And then when I started, when I say limited fruits, fresh fruits and vegetables, that's, I think, probably being generous. I think because I didn't make changes my first month, I think everything we served was canned. So fruit-wise, vegetables were frozen, but there wasn't a wide variety. And when I went to this DPI training, they were talking about these awards for making progress and change in your programs, and they're like, Nikki, say something, and I'm like, no, and they're like, wait, you should say something because you've made changes. But in my mind as a dietitian, the changes we made were a little bit behind the time. So it was really hard to like say, oh, well, we're offering a fresh fruit and salad bar.
We're back to table
Like,
stakes.
we're not using all prepackaged food. Like, it was really hard to say that in a group of your peers. But that is where we were. We were there and now we're somewhere different. And that's something that I think we can be really proud of. So presently, we are purchasing most of our, 90% of our food has to be purchased through your co-op, which is WISNIP. And I was part of this order guide committee. Next year, I'm gonna be part of a different committee. They kind of switch around. But the order guide committee combs through, Gordon Food Service is our vendor. The order guide committee combs through the number of, so if there's 1,500 items on that order guide, they comb through that order guide and pull out items that are most used. And then they look at ingredients, they look at whether or not it's Buy American or all of our food actually has to be Buy American, it's kind of a requirement of the government, unless it's like a banana. But they just make sure we're hitting all those marks, so red dye, if it has red dye, do we really need to have this in the schools or can we maybe not have this in the schools? They look at cost, they look at pricing, and then they decide, instead of having 20 different kinds of chicken nuggets, can we scale it down so that everyone's choosing these 5? Because that gives us better buying power when we go to Gordon and say, we're gonna purchase this many cases of these 5 chicken nuggets instead of this many cases with these 20 chicken nuggets. So that's what that co-op does. There's a lot of networking that happens there. They do continuing education. I mean, there's a lot that go on, and then they do all of our procurement. So instead of us having to write specs for all of the food we want, that's done by a procurement specialist, that's part of the co-op. It's $300 a year, like, it's like gold, basically. Then commodity dollars, we went from the state processed food to direct diversion and DoD Fresh. So DoD Fresh is the Department of Defense. We can allocate money to that fund, and then we can order fresh fruits and vegetables from that processor, and then it's delivered to us to the school. The only bummer about that is that they'll only deliver to one school. So when we get fresh vegetables and fruit from them, we have to then distribute it to all the other schools. And sometimes the pricing is higher than what we could purchase on our own through somebody else. We sometimes do get fresh fruit and vegetables from Gordon. We moved away from that this year just because we were finding that they must have been packing it more towards the frozen side of the truck and we were having issues with our fresh vegetables being frozen. So we moved away from that to a local distributor that brings us those. Direct diversion is a huge undertaking. It means that when you get your dollars from the government, you can take those dollars and put it in, it converts to pounds, and then you use those pounds to purchase the food that you're gonna purchase. So let's say we want to get French fries, or mashed potatoes or whatever, we can divert so many pounds to potatoes, but then that draws down from other pounds. So you only get those pounds equal dollars, and then you have to figure out where you want those dollars and pounds to go.
It's a complicated system.
It's very complicated.
Potatoes to
Fries are
carrots.
lighter than the mashed potatoes, so you get more fries, so.
Well, and the companies are different, so then, like, mashed potatoes come from one company, and then the potatoes come from another company. And then chicken, there's chicken, and we found out this year, surprisingly, that chicken wings are actually considered white meat, because scientifically they decided that the makeup of the muscle of the wing is the same as the muscle of like a chicken breast. So we were, surprise! So we had extra pounds in white chicken meat, cause then at the end of the year, you have to draw down those pounds in order to use the money that you've placed in those places. So we were buying chicken wings, like, we're gonna draw down our dark chicken meat, we're gonna draw down the dark, and it wasn't drawing down, I'm like, what is this? And then I went and looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's considered white. So we ended up with all this dark chicken meat left over, and I'm like, oh, live learn, right? Like, you don't know until you know.
Right.
So that's part of, commodity dollars are a big part of how we purchase. And that's, based off of your commodity dollars are based off of money that you get from 2 years ago. So whatever your lunch participation was 2 years ago, they base your commodity dollars off of something that happened 2 years ago.
Wow.
And then we have to place our commodity order in February for the following school year. So like, we had to sit down in January, this last school year, to decide what commodity dollars we wanted to put into next year's food. So it's just this whole, so really, when I started here, we were already like 2 years behind, so I feel like this year is our year to be like, yeah, we got this. Because it's just such a difficult process.
Okay.
And then if there's extra from the year before and you bring it in, and you didn't know it was gonna be extra, then you have it sitting in your freezer, but then you ordered knowing that your menu is what it is, so it's just, whatever. I dove deep into that one, but. And now we have a fresh fruit and salad bar daily. And we are purchasing locally from Ridden's Edge Orchard for apples. I will only he has those apples pretty much from September until February, and then February he runs out. I won't purchase apples after that. Just because his apples truly are so much better than anything I can buy, that I will just substitute for some other fruit at that point.
Sure.
I will say daily, at the high school, we probably have 3 to 4 different fruits out, and the vegetable bar is, it's just full. I think there's pictures, actually, they're great. The DoD Fresh, we waited and waited for them to have melon, because that's hard to get, and you just have to wait for DoD Fresh to say they have it. So like the last 2 weeks of school, we could bring in all these melons. But prior to that, it was really hard to find them anywhere, and they're super expensive, so that's how we ended up getting fruits and vegetables at the end of the year. The melons and, melons, watermelon, I think strawberries. So my intention for the future would be to stay with the Wisnip Co-op and stay with that. This next year, we did move towards putting more money into DoD Fresh. It's kind of a gamble.
Okay.
You just don't, we're getting the fresh fruits and vegetables already.
Yeah.
But what we were finding is with the DoD dollars that we had when we were directly diverting, we couldn't always use all those dollars as efficiently as we wanted to. So we figured if we were gonna lose some of that money because we couldn't use it efficiently, at least if we put it into fresh food, we're
Sure.
using it to get that fresh, and then that other money will it'll be spent, but it won't be spent the same way.
What does DOD stand for?
Department of Defense.
Oh, that's what I know DOD as,
Yep.
but I'm not,
Why? That's your next question.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm not.
So I think it went back to like World War II, very honestly.
Okay.
When they were trying to recruit soldiers for the army and they were all underweight or too
Yeah.
small.
Right.
The Department of Defense decided in order to help supplement the growth of children to become adults that could function the way they needed to as adults, they would start donating money to the school systems to help them provide better nutrition.
Interesting.
It's a fun fact.
There.
It is a
Should work
fun
that in my
fact.
district. Did you know, moment.
That might not be totally accurate, but it's close to what I.
Conceptually.
But that's when the National School Lunch Program actually started too. Is when, during World War II, that's when they started the National School Lunch Program to help support the growth and
We
development
just call it
of.
bulking season in our house.
Of those kids, so.
They make your RMEs.
So the intention in the future would also be to buy more local. It is very difficult to do. And it takes a lot of time.
Okay.
Finding not only places that have the food that you might need, like the bummer with fruits and vegetables really, or vegetables mostly, is that they're grown in the summer and we don't have students here.
Yeah.
So then when fall comes, you have a few that you can get.
And the first frost, you're done.
Yeah, so we're just, we're in school when there's not those options to buy
Sure.
locally. At the conference I was at week, they had some really great ideas and great things they were doing. I think the federal government is moving towards us in order to sustain our programs using grant money to do that, which is good and also bad. Grants are just, I've written them, I've gotten them, but the work behind the grant once you have it is so difficult and time consuming that I'm not sure how we would even handle that with the staffing the way we have it right now.
Okay.
So that's just a picture of our fruit and vegetable bars. The high school all the schools had these fruit salads. I think the second one in is the high school. Valley View did a fresh salad one day and took a picture. And then we have 2 lines at the high school. The bigger salad bar on the left there is the main line, and then we have a smaller fresh fruit and vegetable bar on the grab and go. So that one on the right is for when we have subs. We'll leave proof and bake our own bread, and then we make the subs based on, and we just kind of throw some, like today's gonna be ham or ham and turkey. And then they can unwrap those subs and go through the line and put whatever toppings they want on it, so. And then just peppers and cucumbers and the salad bars are pretty time consuming, but that's not something that I'm really, like, when it comes to staffing and figuring out how you wanna do things, that's one thing that's kind of a non-negotiable for me. We need to have those.
And they're well used, I assume,
Yes,
or you wouldn't keep up the fight. I mean, obviously it's a win in the fruits and vegetable, like it's all fruit and vegetables, but at the same time, if the students aren't eating them and you're having them be abandoned, then
we have gotten very good at managing how much we need to put out.
Okay.
So initially the first couple weeks are gonna be difficult. Maybe even a month or two. But after like a couple months in, you kind of know what the kids are gonna eat and what they're gonna take. And so like if we put out fresh broccoli and fresh cauliflower, we know that maybe 5 little pieces of it are gonna go. So we'll put out like 15. So it looks good, but we know that it's probably not gonna go.
Sure.
So we've gotten really good at gauging how much students we're gonna take so that we're not wasting. And because of those rotations, everybody kind of knows the job. So then you have these people that know what they've been putting out and they can communicate with each other, this is what we have, this is what we need, and this is what's gonna happen. We do have a rotation for our menus. We right now are kind of on a 4-week cycle. Cycle menus are super important for like purchasing and just monitoring all of the things that we have to monitor and just making sure we don't have a lot of waste. And then we do on our menus, so we started doing our own menus in-house my second year maybe. So it's just a Google menu, it's nothing super fancy, but we find the local control, so we can go in if we have to change the menu and we know the next day they're not gonna send us whatever. Or there's a snow day or whatever, we can change these in real time and then they show up on the problem is parents in elementary schools print these and then they call and they're like, well, wait, the menu changed. And I'm like, well, we changed it and we posted it. Is it on your refrigerator? And they're like, yeah, well, yeah, it won't change on your refrigerator. I can't do that. Can't do magic. And then we added this recently for the school, mostly the school nurses, but if parents want to use this, they can see this. This is every menu item we have. And then it gives you all the nutritional information, allergens, whether or not it contains pork and whether or not it's vegetarian. The school health aides use this for carb counting, the students with diabetes.
Nice, yeah, that's very nice. A lot of work that goes into that.
Yes, I will say my manager, Jess Bluskin, is a blessing. The amount of work she puts into these is incredible. They have databases that will do this for you. But what I found is when you put the ingredients into those databases, you have to do it the way they want you to do it, and you have to learn the way they want you to do it. Where when you build it yourself, you just make it the way you want it, and then you know how you want it. And we've actually written down our processes, so anybody could go in and try and fix it if they needed to. There's not a support system other than us, but at least we have local control of this and we can do what we need to do. And we know how to manage it a little bit differently than, we actually purchased the system and I made them refund me my money. So, we went to this instead.
Okay.
So these are my production records. And I just wanted to show you these because when we talk about nutrition and what the students are offered and what we need to offer as a group, when my staff gets these records, they get only part of the production, so they get up to like L here. They see that, and then they don't see anything, pretty much anything to the right of this, they don't see. So on the right is where we have the stuff that Jess and I look at. And we have to meet meal components that are set forth by government guidelines. And when the staff puts in on the left side what they've served for that day, this spreadsheet then calculates out whether or not we're hitting our meal component based on what they've put on the right hand or the left hand side. And then over here, it also calculates calories, fat, and then the percentage of students that took that item and whether or not we're then meeting our weekly meal components. And then that is on this final page. For the week, what we're meeting, and then we can look at this and say like, oh, we missed our legume, we need to look at the menu, readjust, and make sure we're hitting those items. And then below here, these are the government guidelines, so that my staff actually sees this last page, they can look at this and say, okay, what are these things, what do I need to hit? So here where it says we have to offer 2.5 cups of fruit weekly, if you go up here, you can see that we're offering 15.5 cups of fruit weekly. Total daily vegetables, we're offering 17.5. At the high school, we have to offer 5 cups of vegetables weekly. 5 cups, and then vegetables for the elementaries, we have to offer 3 3/4 cups. So we're far exceeding what we have to offer, which is really good.
Yeah, good job.
Things get really sticky when you get into grains, meat alternatives. Those are easy because they're your main entrees, so those are pretty much easy to meet. It gets a little more difficult when you have second entrees because then you have to make sure those are meeting too, but that's that. And then calories, we have to meet those calories at the bottom for different groups of students too.
Interesting.
Based on what we have. So then over here, this pulls from those first 5 pages. And I have to be within a certain calorie range for, let's say, K5 for the week. And that bottom total tells me that I had 625 calories that we offered. And that's actually not even what we offered, that's what students took.
Okay.
So based on the food the students took, we had on average 625. For the elementary, we have to fall between 550 and 650. So then I know we met that. We have to actually fall under 10% saturated fat for the week. That is actually on the bottom, the average percentage of fat is not saturated, it's actually just fat. So we're actually falling below the fat content that we need. And then that far right column is sodium. So the sodium guidelines are at the bottom here, and we have to have less than 1,230 milligrams of sodium per week on average. So if you see on Friday where it's yellow, that means we came really close to maybe not meeting. That's because we served a hot dog.
Interesting.
And then the Monday calories, I think were either a hamburger or a chicken patty. So we can look at this to evaluate whether or not we're hitting what we need to hit. And then this bottom, I put on here because subgroups of what you think vegetables should be placed as are not always what you think a vegetable is. So like peas aren't really they actually changed the legumes, I think they changed it. It's not beans, peas and legumes, I think it's just legumes now. I don't remember exactly, they just changed it, so I don't remember.
Sure.
And then all the others we have to offer a cup and a half of others every week.
Okay.
So
That's managed.
So that, I don't know if that covers what you wanted for nutritional facts,
Oh, yeah,
but
absolutely.
that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Food cost, I would say breakfast, and this is an average, I didn't really have the time to go in and look at every single group of items that we're offering and make sure that this is totally accurate, but on average, breakfast is costing $1.10 to $1.50. I would say that's probably high, it's probably closer to $1.10 than it is $1.50.
Okay.
At the high school, when you offer that breakfast sandwich, you get tons of kids coming in to eat a breakfast sandwich. Your food cost on a breakfast sandwich is gonna be way higher than if it's a Pop-Tart. But we try to, at the high school, we try to offer that hot option every day, and that gets our participation up. Those cost us a little bit money. Lunch meals, anywhere from $1.25 to $1.75. I also think that is slightly high. We 2 years ago, I think, went from offering, so it's called an A+ burger. And there's nothing wrong with it, there's truly nothing wrong with this burger, but it's a burger with fillers in it. And the A+ means that the filler that they use was applesauce. So,
Interesting.
it's an okay burger, but it's watery, it's not, the texture is a little different. So a couple years ago, we went to offering 100% beef, which I think is the right way to go,
100%.
but you add cost.
Right.
And we haven't done it at the elementaries, well, exactly. But when we offer chicken patties, the kids love like a Tyson chicken patty, which is like a processed chicken patty. And really, there's not fillers in that, but it's dark and white meat, and it's made into the patty. Last year, we started offering like a premium chicken patty, which is very similar, I think, to Chick-fil-A, so it's a whole muscle chicken patty, but then again, cost is gonna go up because that's gonna be more expensive than your other chicken patties. At the elementaries, we don't offer the premium chicken patty, but we have been offering tenders, and the tenders are on whole muscle.
Sure.
So,
Just a quick question, for kids that are vegetarian or vegan, is there like when you're serving chicken, you got their protein in your chicken, do you guys offer like a substitute for protein for vegans per se?
okay, so when that was asked of me by a student in Nina, the struggle with that is, so we are required by the government to provide meals for students that have medical conditions. If we had to, we'd be short order cooks if we had to provide something special to everybody
Sure.
that had it because of a personal preference. We, on the menus, typically will have a vegetarian offer daily. We don't, vegan's tough. It is a very, very tough sell.
Yeah, cause like beans and rice.
Yeah, and a lot of the other kids won't eat it.
Sure.
So-
It's impossible.
It would be very
Along with the gluten and along with everything
It's very
else.
difficult,
Yeah,
and those
the
things we
dyes,
have to, it's very difficult to offer. I will say David and I have been having conversations, so when I started here, I don't know if I wanna say this though. We didn't offer peanut butter and jelly in any of our schools. Peanut butter and jelly is truly one of your best nutritional options for students that don't have other options, that cannot have meat.
Sure.
It is one of your best alternatives. Last year we offered it at the middle school and high school, and it went very, very well.
The peanut butter jellies?
Yeah.
Very, very, very well.
Except then you have to deal with peanut allergies and everything else.
But they're dealing with allergies anyway,
Right.
and the reality is, students are bringing the peanut butter and jellies from home.
Yeah.
So we weren't serving them out of the kitchens, which we don't make them in the kitchens, we buy them prepackaged. But they're bringing them anyway,
Yeah.
So they have allergy tables
Right.
and kids are eating peanut butter and jellies from home. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense that we can't offer them. We looked into the peanut butter and jellies, depending on the type of vegan you are, they're vegan.
Yeah.
But depending on what type of vegan you are, because they're processed in a plant that might process other products that are
Sure.
not vegan,
Very complicated.
I just know a lot of medical doctors are pushing the whole range of plant-based diets now, just because of the stuff that it needs. I know a lot
I
of
will say though,
push-
as a dietitian, kids need protein
Oh, 100%.
for brain growth, and that's really why we're here, right? We want kids to succeed in school, and that protein is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important, so. And if you're gonna go that vegetarian diet, there are other things you have to be careful of too, so. B12 shots, you know, there's so many things that are,
Right,
take
right.
place in that, yeah, we can barely staff now, so. Shorter order cooks would be really tough.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But we do have vegetarian offers, we have offers of vegetarian daily.
Sure, yeah,
We're hoping to move towards having the peanut butter and jellies on all the schools.
there's nothing wrong with peanut butter and jelly.
They really
Go
are.
for one right now.
At the high school, we sell them a la carte, so. And then just other information, we had talked a little bit about the hydroponic towers.
Yeah.
Yes,
They're
I'm
going
very
to-
interested in that. I probably opened up that can of worms, but
Well, so I had them when I was in Mayville, I purchased them for our FFA department. And the FFA teacher was very committed to growing. I think they're a really great thing. I think strategically, you have to plan how you're gonna be able to maintain those and how they're gonna be upheld. When I was in the meetings last week, it was talked about a lot. There are some schools that have a lot of them. They all have different ways of managing them. Some of them are super interesting. There is a 6-week, they say there's a 4-week grow time, it's really a 6-week because you have to start the seed. And there's that 2-week process there. So if you have one, they say if everything goes well, you'll get 25 pounds of lettuce. Maybe. I don't know that we ever really got 25 pounds of lettuce out of our towers. And then if you really want to influence providing for a school, you actually have to have probably 6 of them so that you have them on a rotation, so it goes from
Sure.
seed to final product. You also have to have people to harvest them, which is also a process. And then what I found in Mayville, the kids got used to it, but the lettuce isn't the lettuce you're used to. It has a little different flavor, so you have to slowly introduce it to the students because it's not what they're used to. So they don't love it right away either, so you're ending up mixing it with other. We actually have to offer 50% romaine in any, so we can't just offer iceberg lettuce, it has to be 50% romaine in order for it to count for us. And then if a student takes it, they have to have a half cup of fruit or vegetable every day on their lunch tray. If they take lettuce, it has to be a cup, because lettuce doesn't count for a half cup. So then they have to take a cup, and because it's 50-50, the dark green in that is the romaine, not the iceberg. So that's where I was saying on a register, you have to have somebody that knows meal component in order for them to understand whether or not it's a reimbursable meal.
Wow, that's, okay.
So can I incorporate, because I did some rudimentary, researching it, and I know a couple of the local school districts do that, and they incorporate it into like their curriculum. And I know that in our high school, we do actually have a greenhouse that's not used in the middle.
We do, I did
So-
see our greenhouse,
Yeah.
I think we have to be very careful
Okay,
because they're not inexpensive
okay.
and there's a time commitment to them that is pretty significant. So our FFA teacher in Mayville spent a lot of his own time making them work. So if you have somebody that can commit to that, that's good. If that person leaves and you don't have somebody that's gonna commit to it on the back end of that, that becomes a problem. One of the places that I worked, that I was with last week said that they had their special ed department manage their hydroponic towers, which that seems intriguing to me. Or like, would that be something that Quest could do? Like, there are options, but I think we really just have to be careful about how we decide we're gonna do that and where it is a huge time commitment. And what a couple of the places said is they're super nice the first 2 or 3 years. And when the newness wears off, it's really hard to find people to manage them. And I would hate to get to that place where we've purchased these things that are wonderful, but then we don't have anybody that's gonna actually do the work to keep it moving. So I just wanna make sure if we have that happening, we have everything set up exactly the way it should be, so that it succeeds in the long term.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In greenhouses, it's kind of give you an idea, and Nick and I talked about this a little bit before we had the meeting start today, is it is part of an agricultural curriculum. So as an ag department, we had that as part of our curriculum that we actually utilized grant funding to help purchase. But just like you said, after a couple of years, the newness wore off, and now we have $30,000 worth of equipment that nobody really wants to use anymore.
Sure.
And the same thing with actually the aquaponics, when we had our fish tanks, that we were growing fish and we were utilizing fish. It was fantastic until the first summer when the power went out in the greenhouse and we lost all of our profit, basically, fish.
Sure.
So it is one of those things where it's a great experience for the kids, it's a great thing for us as a resource. But at the same time, it does take a lot to maintain it even outside of grant funding. Our last update on our greenhouse was over $19,000. And that was for one summer's worth of work that didn't even include the ventilation system that needed to get redone. Basically the watering system was an issue that
It's a long-term, it's really a long-term plan to make those things work, I think.
And as an ag department, it's great, if you have a functional operational ag department that you can utilize, where you got the FFA as a partner in that whole operation, and it's, it's stemming all the way from middle school up as part of our CTE programming, that's a neat thing, but that's
Well, I
something
think
we really
building
start
it
from
into a
scratch.
curriculum is really important too, but that can't just happen,
Yeah,
like,
it's a
it's
long-term-
like it's something you have to really plan out and figure out and.
Very interesting. Well, glad you did that, just because I was trying to find, being creative, right, to try to.
I love the idea, and actually the quote I have is because a couple years ago, I was like, can I have my staff manage this? And then I'm like, you have to measure pH, you have to make sure the water, and I'm like, how do I even have my staff do that? Cause we wanted to put it now where the a la carte was and have those garage doors go up and have these towers there, because you can't, they'll try to sell you that you can put them in a lobby. I will tell you, in a high school lobby, some kid is gonna pee in that and you're gonna have watered lettuce that was peed on. Right? I mean, it's.
Ah.
This is a possibility.
I was gonna say probably.
Anything
Middle
is
school is
possible.
possible.
Right,
And that's
right.
always.
So you have to worry about food safety with those, so they
Sure.
can't just be out where anybody can.
Continue.
So then it would have to be, like you said, like part of a curriculum, so ag or foods or chemistry or, somebody's
It's probably like a
monitoring.
biology.
Yeah.
Horticulture was what we
Yeah,
had in
yeah,
plant science.
Right,
Well, thank you, I just.
But then the other thing I put on here, because I'm very interested in this, is AmeriCorps they will offer you if you apply and get accepted, and I did get accepted in Mayville, but then I had an intern in mind and it fell through at the last minute and it just didn't end up working out. They will provide you with an intern, and then the district pays a certain dollar amount for that intern to work for either half-time or full-time or whatever. And that person could be devoted to that type of thing, but they only get 4-year terms. So then after that 4 years, then you get a new intern, so there's more training. Interns are great, but they're also very time consuming. But I think that's something we could explore in the future, is just, do we wanna try that? Do we wanna see if we could do that? And even if they can't grow something, they can teach assisted by a teacher. I mean, a teacher has to be in the room, but they can go on and then talk about fruits and vegetables, and they can talk about growing, and they can talk about those kinds of things. So I think AmeriCorps is a really good resource that we can tap into over time, and see if that would help us move things along. The person that talked last week in Green Bay worked for 4 years in Holman District. Holman does, it's ridiculous, the amount of things they do, but they had this plot of land that was 14 acres and he was a farmer. So he went in, he cleaned out all the land, he had the kids go out in groups and pick rocks. And they planted fields and they planted potatoes and they planted radishes. I mean, it was amazing what they can do, but it is a time commitment and you have to plan for that future.
right. Yeah, the sustainability.
Alright, that's me, sorry. That was an hour.
Thank you very much.
So, Vicki, I just wanted to say that, you know, I know your department probably gets overlooked a lot, but, for me personally, and I think the board would probably agree, you know, I recognize the invaluable service. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Because you feed our children. And, you know, I think the board would also agree too, those that are here, that, you know, don't ever compromise the quality of the food.
Oh, 100%.
Because there are, you know, do what you need to do and we will make that happen. Because, you know, there's some kids, this is their only meal.
There are things worth paying for.
Right.
So I just wanna encourage you, and I can tell how passionate you are about it, and I'm sure Mr. D'Amato is very thankful he's in athletics right now and not food service.
We've met.
We have that.
You wanna share what we talked about?
We did talk
Quickly.
about,
This is good though.
Yeah.
This is a good
I
idea.
did see you taking a lot of notes.
we did talk about, so in Hartford, we do this, but it's
Pretty good.
like, my kids are on the swim team, so,
Burning calories,
a lot of
a
calories.
ton.
My boys are both underweight because they can't take in as much as they need. And I spend a lot of money in the school lunch program, but I gladly do it because I know what they're offering is valuable.
Yep.
What you do is invaluable, so just know that we recognize it.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
Absolutely.
But we have meals that we send out with, like, when my boys go to a swimming, I go and I purchase meals and we bag them and they take them on the bus with them so that they have a meal. Cause a lot of times when you go to an away meet or away game, they don't have food.
Yeah.
So our ultimate goal, if we can make it work, and Jess is a little nervous about this, is that we would have a form that the kids can fill out before they leave with their name and what they want. We'll give them a limited number of options.
Selection, sure.
And they can say, this is what I want. The parents obviously will have to pay for that meal. But then that meal will be ready for them on the bus and they'll have food for their
Yeah.
We did that in Fort Aikens, that was one of the programs that was just hugely popular with their athletes. For traveling, you could have box lunch, box meals on the way.
Yeah.
It made a humongous difference.
Increase performance, decrease
Yeah.
risk of injury,
Yeah.
things like that, focus, everything.
I know a lot of the teams do that on their own too, like
Yeah,
I know the
it
football
is.
team the night before or whatever, they have that, the dance
Only
team.
varsity.
Well,
But
it is a big undertaking, like,
Right.
It is.
it's a huge undertaking, and I will say, like, we couldn't offer the same meal price for lunch, because we get funding for that, right?
Correct.
But I think our meal price would still be better than many other places. Like, when we were getting meals in Hartford, I was picking them up and they gave us a break, we go to AMGB's, which is in Hartford, and it was $8 a meal. I don't think we'd even be at that price point, so it would be a better price.
So anyways, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for the stickers.
Already have it on the laptop, look at that.
Oh, that's awesome!
Mine's going on my Yeti.
That's a great idea.
Mine is definitely going on my Yeti.
Alright, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have
Oh, yep.
Yes.
Director of Athletics and Activities, so thank you for coming in to kind of let us know the 30, 60, and 90-day plan.
Yeah,
So John, tomorrow you have the floor.
okay, yeah, outstanding. So I got, would that be a little?
You wanna go up?
Yep.
I gotta get off,
So-
my mouse.
What I was gonna ask too is if the board doesn't mind, it would be alright if you left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great job.
I might stay for a few minutes, but,
Welcome to
you know.
Usually actually people just leave anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isabella, did you have to leave as well, did you say?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you said you had to,
Yeah, I have family from home, Oregon.
okay, alright.
You can take notes for us, that's okay.
So how do you do it?
If you want
Sure.
Oh, the computer's up there.
So the Windows, okay.
Oh, wait, it's okay.
Going back over.
No,
We can take notes too.
And then that.
This is brand new. Maybe this thing is like souped up.
It says it's connecting, let's see.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled about this too. It's a touch screen and everything.
Is it really?
Oh, it's firehouse, yeah.
Merged.
I think I caught them early when they were handing them out. I got in there, you know.
Just like
I
your
saw
phone
Mark
right
and
now.
Mark's just like, hey, here you go. It's like, all right.
There's not a pin, it's not offering me, oh, 3, 4, 5. There we go. let's try that one.
You know, you guys have it in front of you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Don't worry about it. Actually, I don't even
We got
know
it.
that. We have
It's
this.
coming.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, I prefer the action figure.
You know what I ended up doing, I put together that 30, 60, 90, but however, what kind of like funnels into that is what's been kind of happening the last, you know, the past 2 weeks. That first week, and I call it 2 because I've actually been here like for 2.5, close to 3. That first week, as you all know, as a new hire, there's a lot going on. You know, I'm just trying to figure things out, I'm meeting people, I'm like getting my laptop here, understanding systems and stuff like that. So I broke that down in tasks, systems, collaboration, and then communication with this. So basically the tasks that I've been looking at and what I've been really tackling right now is our fall, winter, spring schedules. For our fall schedules right now, we're at about 95%. Came in a pretty good place. If it wasn't for golf and Tori Pritchard, we'd probably be done, okay? However, it's okay, you know, yeah, we're working with that. So our scheduling, transportation, scheduling officials, event workers, Luke Langer's doing a great job, put together a spreadsheet, so kind of networking with people that are, you know, important to make our events really go. The registration, working with Callie with that, facility scheduling, that's a big one. As I'm talking to buildings and grounds, that's kind of their lifeline. So understanding that system and how important that is and getting acclimated and getting up to speed with that and getting our schedules put in the fall sports. And then new hires, I'm super excited about the coaching staff that we do have in the fall. I think I just hired a boys varsity volleyball assistant coach today. And then all we have out there is a girl and boys cross-country assistant and a dance assistant. Other than that, we're locked and loaded for the fall, so I'm super excited about that. As far as the systems, Skyward, I was privy to, so I just kind of needed a refresher. Dan took me through some steps with that as well. Power School is new for me, Schoology is new for me, and so is Outlook. So I kind of understand those new systems. The budget is what it is, I'm very familiar with that. The website, that's gonna be ongoing, that's gonna be a process. I met with the Donovan Group, assigned a webmaster as well with social media. And now I'm gonna be meeting with my coaches. I met with all my coaches, over 20 of them. Some for a short 10, 15 minutes, some for an hour and a half. You know, but in every conversation, you know, we did speak of the expectations moving forward as far as schedules, rosters, photos, things like that. So we'll get that caught up to speed and I'll talk a little bit more about the 30, 60, 90 with communication. HR with athletics and activity hires, Isabella, I gotta give you a shout out. She spent a lot of time with me as far as that process is concerned, right? A little bit different than what I'm accustomed to, but it works. And Melissa as well, so those two have been great. As far as my collaboration, been a part of that operations strategic planning team, the B&G, Chris Carlton, Jeff Knodel, Joe Weber, Justin, Ricky, Kyle, all those guys, been meeting with all those guys. We had a great talk 2 days ago, sat down for like 3 hours and just kind of looked at our plan, our short-term plan, long-term plan, our communication piece, our needs, our wants, things like that, so it's really open. District leadership team, BLT as well. I met with Jason and Dan over at Community Rec. Head coaches, like I said, I met with all of them, also met with Brian Kurt, the middle school athletic director. Brian and I go way back, we both taught at Thomas Jefferson together, so I think we talked for about an hour and a half and about an hour and 15 minutes of that was just catching up. You know, and then we start talking systems and everything else. Business office, Matt Clark has been outstanding, I've really been up to speed as far as that piece is concerned. Hall of Fame committee, we're meeting on August 5th, connected with Dick Woozencraft. So we got the committee put together, so we're gonna get the ball rolling in the right direction there, so we were able to do that. My trainer, Lizzie, she's been outstanding. So I met with her needs, wants, how she functions, how I like to function. Great communication piece there between her and I. Vendors, of course, they all want your business when you're the new guy in town, right? So, you know, we're gonna continue with Burkhart's, BSN, met with Iron Jock, things like that. Our advisors have been great, met with robotics, drama, band, and then boosters as well. So, the booster club, we got a meeting on the 14th, I'm super fired up to work closely with them, and I'm meeting with the cheer boosters next week. As far as communication, coaches meeting, we're gonna have an all coaches meeting. Even though I met all my coaches, I'm gonna bring them all in, and we're gonna be going through that on August 13th, that's from 5 to 6, and then I have a parent player meeting, Meet the Phoenix, from 6 to 6:30, and then my fall coaches will branch out, and then we'll be able to connect on on a local level, in regards to their sport with their parents and their players, thereafter. So it's a big night. David sent me an email yesterday and he's like, we got a big meeting on the 13th, so we're meeting with the district leadership team from 8 to 4, and then I'm on from 5 to about 8:30, so I gotta get my rest that the
I'll be
night
there.
before. Yeah, absolutely. So-
Before the end of 12.
Yeah. So then, we got the back to school fair, I've been preparing with that, class meetings, been preparing with that, putting some slide decks together, working with my admin team there. Phoenix time, we're gonna be doing something called the Phoenix Way with our leadership team, with our students. I think that's gonna be new, and I think that's really gonna take off. I've done that in the past and it's been outstanding. And then obviously the school handbook, we just finished that up yesterday, we're like 99% done. So meeting with Dan, Christina, and John with that. As far as the 30, 60, 90 is concerned, go ahead.
Hop into one question, you breezed over the website.
Yeah, I'll get to that more,
Okay,
because that's
is
part of
it
the
your
30,
plan
60,
to
90.
use the one that exists today? And just populate it before we figure out like what a long-term strategy is?
Can I get to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, we got a strategy here, and we're gonna see, we got a couple stakeholders involved. We gotta still line up a couple things, but, like I said, I think it'll be a slow to go, but my main focus is gonna be culture, communication, leadership, safety, strength and conditioning. I'm a huge advocate of bolstering our athletic department, and by doing so, culture is number one. So in doing so, we gotta make sure that the coaches are bought in, meaning that the players are bought in, and then the parents are bought in, and the community's bought in. So tackling that's gonna be a big point moving forward. The communication piece, I pride myself on my own communication. I know the website is of a great importance, I get that, but it doesn't win conference championships. It doesn't matter how great your website is, that doesn't matter to developing athletes and things like that. However, I'm not gonna discredit a website, I'm not gonna discredit the need of communication and social media and getting our brand out there, and parents understanding that, and in our community members, that's gonna be taken care of. However, looking at leadership from our coaches, leadership from our students, safety, making sure, when we have a venue, it is positive, everyone has a positive experience and they're enjoying that environment. And then the last one would be the strength and conditioning piece, because that's where we can develop our athletes, in season and out of season. So if you look at it, how am I measuring this? With surveys, interviews, evaluations, assessments, and observations. I kind of have you with my first 30 days, what that looks like, and what the due date for me and for you, and what you can expect. So the coaches, athletic department, it's a culture audit. So I'm gonna really get a feel for the coaches, and whether they're a head coach, an assistant coach, what are we doing really well? I mean, what are some things that are really going well? What are some things that we, should probably start doing, and what are some things that we should probably stop doing? So just getting a pulse out there, understanding the climate, understanding the current, culture of the athletic department, through their experiences, that's gonna be used through a survey, and then I'll collect that data. Student athlete fall leadership team, I'm gonna call that the Phoenix Way. From there, I'm gonna have every athlete, okay, I should say not every athlete, it will be every coach, okay, is going to put forward a couple leaders that they feel that could be representatives of their sport in the Phoenix Way. So that's from girls swim, to wrestling, to boys track and field, to girls volleyball, You know, we're all gonna be one big happy family. So it's gonna expand. It could be anywhere from 50 up to 100, okay? And that's gonna be that opportunity. It could be a freshman all the way up to a senior. It's gonna be deferred to that coach, okay? So we're gonna be sending out that survey to my coaches. I'm gonna talk more about that at my parent-player meeting. Communication, website assessment. Right now, I'm doing interviews, making assessments, seeing what we need, what that looks like, moving forward. We should have a really great idea on where we're headed by August 1st. Event management, again, I'm looking at that process right now. I've been evaluating it. I talked to one of the stakeholders today about how we can improve that system. Dan has chimed in quite a bit with the evaluation as far as our event managers, and we have a proposal for you guys going to the next slide. And then the strength and conditioning analysis, that's kind of like my thing. I'm really into that, always have been. So I've been doing my fair share of assessments. So moving into the 60 days, we're gonna continue with those objectives. Obviously, I'm gonna be taking the 30-day data analysis. I'm gonna be working with my administration teams and collaborating with them, Dan being one of them. But when we look at the athletic department and culture, by September 27th, this will be done in person and through email. We need to get our mission, our standards, our expectations, and our feel of unity and cohesiveness as an athletic department. We can't have, teams doing this with each other. We have to bond together, and we have to have one common goal, okay? So that's gonna be on my shoulders, okay? To me, to get my coaches to buy in and to make sure that we're all on the same page, we have the same expectations, same standards. The problem is coaches are territorial, right? So when they have them, they wanna have them all the time. And they don't wanna see them in another sport because they're hearing a different message. Now, if the message is consistent, okay, and it's something we agree on, okay, they're gonna be more apt to allow them to play another sport. And when I say allow them, I mean support them. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so that's what we wanna build here. The other thing is, one thing we really wanna develop is that strength and conditioning program for everyone. Not just for the football team, not just for wrestlers, that girls, guys of all different sports, all different shapes and sizes that can benefit from. And that's something we can rally around, okay, does that make sense? So, the student athlete leadership team, like I said, will be the Phoenix Way. I'm gonna be getting those names, we're gonna meet weekly, I've done it bi-weekly. Here's the thing, I never wanna take too much of the kids' time. If you go an hour, it's too long, I wanna do it on the early release day, which makes sense, you got them there anyways. The teachers are occupied, now it's me. So I got that time with them. So that works out really, really well. We can meet bi-weekly, we can meet weekly. Typically, I don't like to go over 45 minutes, because they're kids, right? And it's it's an early release.
Yeah, they wanna
Now they're
enjoy
gonna be with Coach D'Amato, so I kinda wanna meet them halfway. But generally, they enjoy it, they love it, they wanna come, and they're gonna have a great time with it,
Question on that.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of activities represented in here, and then when you look at the student athlete leadership team, is there an opportunity for emerging leaders in the activities to join in?
Totally.
Okay,
And I feel to put that in there.
okay,
Okay, and that's not because I don't care about them, my son did 4 years of drama, choir, so he's very heavily involved. This is gonna benefit everyone, it's not just athletic based, the leadership
And
team.
one of the things John and I talked about too is not only is there the competition within the athletic realm, you've got the competition for exactly what he's talking about with the son, where you got someone that's in drama, that's got a theater
Mhm.
production, but still wants to participate in sports. That's where it becomes this almost tug of war. And that's one of the things that you've been established from a cultural standpoint is that they're all of our kids at all
Yep.
times.
well, some do intramurals
We have
and
to
some
be
do.
able to-
Totally,
We have to be able to recognize that well-rounded part of the kid,
Perfect.
so.
and that's what we want too, we wanna foster that type of student athlete, that they can enjoy the arts or the band or, be in a club and an activity. That looks best on a college resume, I'll be honest with you. So that's what we really want to establish here, so I'm glad you pointed that out, thank you. Communication website assessment, we have a webmaster right now, so in Sarah Burling, I spoke with her. We would like to see that to be a stipend position. She would act as like my conduit. So the tricky part about like athletics, it's instant. You know, you're at the event, things are happening. You know, you can sit there and work with the Donovan group, which we are, which is awesome. And Dan put together just a beautifully laid out template and a survey form that comes out each week. Every coach will get it. They'll be able to punch in whatever they want, pictures, shout outs, things like that. But that comes out weekly, right? And that's gonna show up on the website. So I hope that answers your
The
question.
biggest thing I think that I hear pain points around families is the ability to plan, so access to the event calendar. So I look at it through, some teams have their own special apps and that helps for families who have athletes that are planning. But then there's the engagement of the community and the fans. So all I would say is,
Yeah.
if it's taking a while to get the website put together, fine.
Yep.
Find another way to get the schedules and the announcement for the games through
Got it.
social media out there.
Yep.
So that people that wanna support the teams in the community
Totally.
have access to know, am
Totally.
I on the road, am I home?
Yep.
That's the biggest gap, is people go to the website expecting to see the schedule,
Yep.
and then it's not there.
Including the
Yeah.
practice schedule and when it's starting and if it's next month, but
Yeah.
nobody knows when and
That's the thing,
times
all my
and-
coaches are gonna be required to have it uploaded on there. Like football's already got their schedule on there and RS has a nice cool picture. So we're gonna have that type of stuff. Now we work with our school. Our school has, but sometimes that's cumbersome, right? You know, and there's cancellations and there's you know,
Agreed.
yeah, totally.
I mean, people are flexible, I think the reality though is one parent called me and said, I didn't know there was a meet that got snuck up so quickly and now I have to
Yeah.
figure out transportation. And
Yeah,
so part of it is,
Totally,
it's the planfulness of, we're parents, we want these kids to participate, but
Yep.
we also may have to then adjust our work schedule to get
Yep.
them from A to B.
Yep.
Or to be there to cheer them on.
Yep.
It's one of those things where we haven't shined in this
Yep.
aspect, and so
Yep.
it is a very visible pain point.
Yep.
That's being
I'm-
not shiny and being nice.
Yeah.
It is, I'm trying to
we'll
be
get
kind,
better.
so
I will tell you
I
that.
wanna-
We'll get better and we are getting better.
I wanna speak to
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
pain and the amount of calls,
Yeah.
many of us on the board.
Yeah, no, I can imagine,
Seriously,
right?
it's true.
So I just
Hey,
wanna,
if
if you
you're
want an
getting phone
easy,
calls, what do you think I'm gonna be getting?
right, if you want an
So,
easy
you know,
win,
yeah.
this is the easy win.
So I've been involved in athletics here.
Yeah.
I coached her kid when he was little, from Little League and football, you know, for the last 10 years, right?
Yeah,
So I'm known in the community.
totally.
And when I'm getting calls, hey, what's going on, you know,
Yeah.
when's this going on, when's this coach's meeting, how come, when's the kid's practice schedule? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not me, you know?
Right.
But, and I said, well, did you check the website? Well, yeah, I did, it's not there.
Yeah.
That's a problem,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
You know, and I think the other thing I've heard recently is how many damn apps do I have to install on my phone?
Yeah.
Right, so we got every sport that has this app,
Yeah.
that app.
I can get behind unique apps, specifically use Game
Well,
Changer for baseball.
Sure,
It tracks certain data and demographics, and as a mom
Yeah.
who's remote, I can watch the game run in the app, so that part
Yeah.
works. But I think more importantly, somebody who's a fan of the team isn't gonna have the app and isn't gonna be able to follow along. It's a matter of making sure athletics are tied so tightly to this community, you touched on boosters, there's a
Yeah.
lot of generous giving in the falls community.
For
I wanna
sure.
make sure that we're promoting our events in a way that
Yeah.
people know how to participate, so.
I would encourage you to use the digital board outside of the high school stadium
I'm on
to
it.
put up schedules
Oh, yeah.
and everything like
Yeah,
that.
I'm on it.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, you were talking about the apps or whatever, every single team, and my son was a
Yeah.
three sport athlete, my daughter is a dancer. And
has their own app.
communication between the coach and the athlete,
Yeah.
or the coach and the parents, is all done on like different things. Like the wrestling team would use Snapchat, or the dance team uses Band, and you gotta have 14 other apps to
Yeah,
communicate with your
it's-
coaches and
Yeah.
the coaches
It's not
communicate
standard.
with the athletes.
Yeah.
So, and like with dance, my wife has the app, but I refuse to get it because it goes off 47 times at night, and I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Right,
So
right.
it's,
So a concern is like multiple platforms that we're using to communicate and not having
the
consistency.
coaches
And that
to
you
the
come up with
athletes and the
strategic
coaches,
planning
the
too.
the coaches
Yeah.
to the athletes and then the coaches to the parents.
Yeah.
If you could just have one, and I'm sure the Donovan group is coming up with something.
So one of the things, and I just asked Isabella this too, because one of the things that we've been dealing with right now is this platform called Constant Contact. I've never utilized it before, but it's something that's out there, and I don't know how good it is or anything else. But that was one single platform that as a district that we've seen that we've been using for other things.
Yeah.
I also know that Power School's got stuff within that realm, Skyward actually.
Yeah. And that's where I'm kind of going with this, I mean, I mean, boy, if I remember all the apps, Class Dojos, Power School, Skyward,
Yeah.
Band, this app, that app, this app, it's like, seriously, how many apps do I have to have on my phone, how many apps?
Sports you, all
Well, then you
that
should
stuff.
check them all.
Going.
Yep.
Just
But-
so-
Or the
Turn on the
notifications.
notifications.
And one thing you may wanna look into is what capability does our website, so I'm obviously in IT, so I know how this stuff works, right?
Yeah.
So you may wanna see what integrations, I think, was our website through Sports Engine still?
No, it's through BNN.
You know, okay, so we wanna see
Just
what
the
they have.
athletic one is, but
Sure.
that's tied, there's a merger there, right?
Right.
You have our school, that's, is my scheduler.
Yep.
And then we do all our contracting officials, everything. So they now merge with BNN
Okay.
because now on our website, our schedules go directly to BNN.
Sweet.
So we have that.
So we may wanna see if they offer like a mobile,
With our school,
Something.
there is,
Yeah.
they are offering it.
Yeah.
yeah, to see what type of mobile thing, and then we say, hey, this is our platform, this is our standard going forward.
Sure, for dance and football and
Well, for all
soccer
activities, right,
and-
just to see what we can utilize in one app.
Yeah.
For those multi-sport families, multi-activity families.
Yeah.
And then they're
But I
not,
think also too, this conversation is also going to be had in our strategic plan, because
Correct.
that's one of
Oh,
our
sure.
pillars, is the communication. So all of this is
That
actually
would
going
fall
to be
under that
addressed
umbrella.
and flow into it too, along with the downloads. So I think there's a lot of, moving parts that are now coalescing, so, that's where
I
the
just rather
strategic.
people know.
I will do this, I will gladly fall into place, okay? As an athletic department, where you guys make that decision.
Be prepared for the parent meeting for this to maybe come up if there's questions.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, and I know how to answer it.
Right,
Yeah.
it's part of the
Yeah,
strategic
perfect.
plan, you just
Yeah,
gotta
it's
talk
part of the
to them.
strategic plan,
Just call
it's in
Dr.
the works.
Christensen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were at the
Can you
meeting?
put our phone number on a sticker?
You were at the
Oh,
meeting?
that's great.
I'll be at the parent meeting as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
to get off the website topic, one thing, my question for you would be, what about community engagement, right? I'm thinking about, if you look at sports back in the day,
Meeting with Woodman's next week,
good, oh, so you're already out, okay.
I'm on it, Dan and I spoke.
These
Yeah.
businesses
Yeah.
will pour money into athletics.
Yeah.
I know one of my family members, he drills holes foundations,
Yeah,
and he did something for a soccer club.
Yeah.
And
we're speaking the same language, yeah.
so I mean, that community engagement, I think we've lacked in that the last couple of years. Where
It's great about the
but
building.
that's where money comes from, donors,
Yeah, yeah,
and sponsorships.
Oh, yeah, and people that wanna help
Hey, I love
out, they
it.
wanna be part of it.
One of
You're
the
here.
Yeah.
one of the more humorous conversations John and I have had is, when we're starting to look at how we fund sanitation that takes place at athletic events. Not many companies really wanna put their name necessarily on a porta potty,
Yeah.
but they might be interested in helping support something with a concession stand that has restroom facilities built in. And it's just one of those things where you all of a sudden attach Harley Davidson concession on a new piece of our property to help fund some of the things that we need to help.
I mean,
Just make it a
just,
better event for everybody.
Agreed.
A better
Well, and you-
experience.
Absolutely.
And it's culturally, you drive by the baseball field at Trenery and there are tons of advertisements hanging, and then you look at the football and it's a little sparse. And so
Yeah.
there's opportunities, we get big crowds for football games. It's one of those things that was a just
Yeah.
yeah.
That'll look
moment to
great,
be
just
able to
over a
get-
new scoreboard.
yeah,
Well, and the reality
I
is,
hear
we
ya.
doubled down between the new turf, we
Yeah.
put the new turf, and now we're getting the new soccer box, like, people take pride in our athletics,
Yeah,
it
they
brings
do.
our community together,
No
and
question.
if it's an opportunity to either offset taxpayer dollars
Yeah.
or speed up funding turf on baseball and softball
Yeah.
fields, we want those partnerships so people can be prideful of
Yeah.
hosting our competitive events, our visitors, our activity events, our challenges, that they
Yeah.
come in with a sense of pride that our facility is shining.
And then the flip side of that, why not spotlight some of the stuff that we've got to offer in our community?
Correct.
That's right here by us, and we don't have to go to a different state to have it. I mean,
And I wanna be clear, and I will say this, the hot buttons are there because the culture, the communication, leadership, safety, strength and conditioning, those are like incredibly like immediate. I want you to know behind the scenes, we are working on those types of things.
sure.
It's just because it didn't make the 30, 60, 90 doesn't make it a priority. You know, we're on top
I
of
care that you know where
it.
the hot buttons are, if you want an easy way, here you go.
Yeah,
That's true.
So, but thank you. Just wrapping things up, Dan, you know, brought this to my attention, he talked about an associate AD position. Someone, because there's times where there's multiple events, right? There's 2, 3 varsity events going on at once. We wanna make sure that these events are enjoyable, they're managed. We just wanna make sure that we're locked in. And we currently don't have something like that. So our ability to offer a stipend position to a individual or 2 individuals to really work the fall, winter, spring seasons is something that we're really looking into. We have 2 individuals, 2 names right now that we're excited about. But now we just kinda have to work through some numbers
Are
and
they
things like that.
people that are already affiliated with the district?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
they people that are, so employees of the
Yeah.
district? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
great.
We wouldn't be like looking
Additional-
for like.
It would be like a coaching stipend,
Perfect.
Right,
Yeah.
you know?
yeah,
But this is what they do, and they enjoy it, and they're at the event, and, you know,
Yeah.
they're able to meet and greet the officials, bring them in, you know, get the announcer set up, just
Maybe some extra crowd
Yeah.
control if needed.
a little extra crowd
And
control,
at the same time, it's a
extra
shared
set of
leadership.
eyes,
Absolutely.
you know,
It's a shared
visibility is huge.
right,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
shared
Because
leadership,
that's the
that's a
Shared
great,
leadership,
that's a
and you're,
great,
you're building
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
confident people
Yeah.
It's a great
versus
idea.
maybe just someone that wants to supervise.
because as the programs grow and increase in participation and it's all part of that system.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's a great way if they're eyeing for my job, they can get some like great on-job experience, you know? So, and then the strength and conditioning analysis, you know, like I said, all sport, females and males, 4 to 6 coaches. I put together a waiver today, and put together a sign-up sheet. It would be $50 for the year. I mean, that's incredibly cheap if you think about it. What is out there, you pay, you know, $50, $60 as a student over at the WAC. Now we have a state-of-the-art facility at the high school. And then I can take that money, let's say we get 200 athletes that sign up for it, that's $10,000. It gets put right into the coaches. I can pay them a stipend. It doesn't come out of our athletic account. And they're there working with their athletes. It doesn't have to be athletes either. We will take non-athletes as well. So it's almost like a lifting club. But it's been incredibly successful. When I was at Hamilton, we built the numbers to over 300, and we started at Tosa West, where we had nothing, and we are over 100, and we were bringing over 70 middle school athletes as well. So with 4 coaches, so it's about development, right? It's about, you know, understanding the process, understanding how we do things, why we do things, and when you have a collection of athletes in there, and they're all working together, all doing the same thing, you build something special, and that's when you start to elevate and decrease injuries. You got buy-in, you have continuity, cohesiveness. So it's a great facilitator. And it's 3 days a week. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's for an hour a day. It's 4% of your day. That's what we're asking for. I gotta get my coaches to buy into it. So there's gonna be some changes. Because right after school in the winter, SAS is using the gym, for a half hour, because we gotta do all of our change of direction, our power movements, our agility work, our speed work, and then basketball can come in. So I gotta get them to buy into that.
Yeah, also be conscious of the in winter, the gyms.
Yeah.
Because the rec league rents that stuff out.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So I
that's,
gotta work closely with Dan
Yeah.
and Jason, so
Yeah.
we'll figure it out, we'll make it happen,
oh, of course.
It's
I like it, it's great.
Even
Thank
before
you.
school.
can do that too. That's always an option. I know,
Can I do it during Phoenix time?
Alright, we're in the classroom, now we're gonna get the word out.
The funny thing you say about that, is it is a way for encouraging that enrichment time to be used as an incentive.
Yeah.
Because if you get all your work done, then
Yeah.
you're-
Hey, there you go.
that is.
Just
incentive.
be careful, because some people are leaving school early, like the varsity golf team, sometimes they need those Phoenix times to catch
Yeah,
up on the
work
lessons
on
and
that.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
I betcha.
They
You just
do.
gotta, you gotta figure out that
Academic
balance.
You can
Yeah,
definitely can't make it
totally.
like a standard practice, but it's one of those things where if it's here and there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
nice little perk for a kid that does what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
I've also been working closely with the fitness ed department as well, talking about their curriculums and bolstering their numbers. Nothing's better than, what they offer is really great. We just gotta be, have some different strategies and maybe bolstering those numbers, getting our athletes in that class, so then they don't have to do it after school. They're getting credit for it, they're doing it in school, quality workout, outstanding, then they can go to their sport, go to their job, do their homework, do all those things, right? So I just want you to know that I'm going beyond, the teams and working directly with, Coach Baker and Coach Schmidt and Brooke in the five department and working with them. So I'm just gonna wrap things up here real quick, guys. You've been great and you've been patient with me. But again, with the 90 days, we're gonna do, this is dear to my heart. I coach the coaches, right? So a coaches retreat, so that's leadership development. So we'll have that roughly around October. It works best when you have it at the end of the fall season and before the start of the winter season, right? That's when if I have it like during the season, it never works out. You guys are just spent or whatever, and I gotta give them a little bit of a breather, but, so that's great. That's when I bring in all coaches, assistant coaches, and now, we get our thoughts and our ideas, and that's really brings continuity, togetherness, our unity, and, and we share. What's working for you, we open it up, and I have an agenda, but at the same time, I don't do all the talking. The coaches need to talk, just like in the classroom, right? Student talk, teacher talk. You gotta get the students to talk, you gotta get the coaches to talk and share ideas. These are the strategies that I use, this is how I get better, this is what I've seen, you know what I mean? So it's great.
Is that just for then the fall coaches, where they do sort of like a reflection of the prior season, or do you do it with all the coaches?
I do with all the coaches.
Okay.
So I have my track coaches there, all my spring coaches, baseball, we're all together. So it's a retreat. It's fun, get pizza, stuff like
sounds
that, And then we have a leadership summit, which is great. So I'm gonna be taking we're actually hosting it, which is awesome. I'm pretty excited about that in November. So we have a leadership summit here. So everything that we've done is gonna kind of funnel into that day. So super excited about that. Website, fall sports, at that time, my template that I'm gonna have for them, at the very least, you got roster schedules, pictures, you know what I mean? And, your communication piece. And with that, at the end of the year, you're gonna have to have your awards, and then like how everything kind of, ended the season stuff. The winter sports, I'm gonna start their website process in October, still work with the Donovan Group, and then work on that winter webmaster. It should still be Sarah, hopefully. Event managers, again, work with them with winter duties, event schedules, things like that, make sure that we're all squared away. And then the strength and conditioning, we're gonna start our periodization at that time, we'll be really going at that point, in strength, modalities, patterns, our power, change direction, linear speed stuff, so super excited, so. I enjoy doing this, I'll be honest with you, I have a million ideas and I pride myself on my organization and in my communication and everything, but this helped me, so I hope it helped you. I hope you have a glimpse on what I'm all about and where this athletic department is headed. Couldn't be more excited. Dan's been instrumental on many parts on helping me with the website, with the event managers, things like that, some great ideas. We work really well together, so. And Isabella, of course, you've been outstanding, so she's always an email away or a phone call, so I got good support.
I can't believe it's only been 2.5 weeks, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
What you been doing?
I know. My wife says I'm a grinder, so that's what I do, I
I
grind.
do have a question for you about, are you familiar with like the current coaching approval process, like with parent coaches, assistant coaches wanting to get involved?
Yeah.
And
You asking my philosophy or?
well, our current practice, and then, do you agree with it, disagree with it, what would you do to improve that?
I mean, I think they gotta be vetted like anyone else, you know what I mean? I think you gotta be careful, whenever you bring on a parent as I would say as a salary, individual. There's situations where I've seen it work and, that dynamic was there, the credibility was there, the trust was there. It wasn't just an outsider coming in with an agenda. It was someone that maybe coached the girls all the way up in youth, they know them, and now we got an opportunity to coach the girls basketball, freshman team, whatever the case is. In that
Sure.
case, I think we can all agree and be reasonable that it's probably gonna work.
Yeah.
Parents are familiar with them, you get the idea, and that's the picture. In some cases, I would steer my coaches against it, if it's a one-off, like, okay, yeah, we got one application right now and it's a parent. Sometimes
Sure.
it's, you're desperate and, because a lot of people don't wanna coach anymore. They, it's like anything else, people don't wanna volunteer ever since COVID. In coaching, it's tough to find good coaches. I think one thing I can do and have done, my track record is I track good coaches, people that wanna be here, build a culture that they feel supported, give them the resources, things like that, so that's on my shoulders. However, like I said, there's gonna be situations where you can support it and there's gonna be situations where we probably shouldn't go down that rabbit hole, so.
Right, yeah.
But in any case, whether it's a volunteer, whatever, they gotta be vetted like everyone else and we'll go about that process.
What is our current process on that? Do we have like a code of conduct for them? Is there handbook stuff that they go over and, like you said, you vet them,
Are you
check
talking
the boxes?
a coach, or are you talking a parent, or are you talking a volunteer,
Like
what
a
are we talking?
parent helper, hey, I wanna help the team. What do I do? Volunteer.
Yep, so a volunteer process would go through our HR department, and mostly it starts with Raptor, which we've talked about before. The Raptor process means that they're gonna get screened for, the volunteers are a little more extensive than what we just have, like a visitor management system come through. So, just like John said, this is a process that gets vetted very thoroughly. So if I wanna volunteer to help out with my kids, that's ninth grade baseball.
Right.
It's one of those things where, okay, well, you can hang out because you're gonna watch them, you'll be there, you'll be present practice, but if you start having influence and start impacting other students, now we gotta vet that.
Yeah.
Which means we're gonna be running it through the Raptor program for volunteers, which goes through HR department, and then really it becomes up to the coach. And having done that before, when I've been my daughter's coach for basketball before, and at the same time, you gotta be cautious about that influence. We've had, here's our girls' basketball team in Mosinee, we had a great coach that stepped up to take over for when our one coach left. And the family that took over was the player's dad. And that did lead to some issues, but the kids were phenomenal. It wasn't like they're influencing or doing the coaching role just because they want their kids to have more playing time. They're doing it because the kids are tremendous athletes, same with our football team. Our head coach was, his sons both played football, one got a full ride scholarship to South Dakota. I'm gonna guess the other one's probably gonna get one too. And it wasn't that nepotism concern that came up, but
Sure,
you do
sure.
run into that.
Yeah.
Daddy ball.
Yeah.
Right on, that's-
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's on me, that's for me to have those conversations, to influence them, to guide them, you know what I mean? And walk them through that process, what it may look like, and the concerns,
Right.
I'm
Right. It's
okay
nice
with
to have the
tough
help, but-
conversations,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
completely fine with that,
You get to coach them.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a coach.
coach,
Well, when we hired you, I told them all you were passionate and you were intense, and I was 100% right, so.
You were kind of off on the intensity.
I don't know if that's a shot or if that's a compliment. I don't know how to take that.
2.5 weeks, keep up the good
At
work.
least I have some
Keep up the good work.
enthusiasm.
You have
I'll take that, I'll
So
take
here's,
that.
here's what I'll say, is
Yeah.
when our district made the social media post about your hire, it was fascinating to just read all the comments that were telling you welcome back and
Yeah,
no need to cringe. I was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
I didn't know you from anybody.
Yeah.
I've been at the Falls 14 years, but I'm not
Gotcha,
generational. So
yeah.
so to see the outpouring of support for you returning to the community
Yeah.
just solidified the decision. So I just say,
Hey, we got a big reunion coming against Hamilton. We got the 20-year conference
are you
champions.
allowed to show up?
Hey, we got the team coming
Are you-
back, because I coached that team here in the Falls. So Spencer Schultz and John Logie called me and there's like Coach D'Amato, first of all, welcome back. Why did it take you so long? They're just like, you finally figured it out. I was like, yeah, thank you. And they're just like, hey, can you do us a favor? We're gonna do like it's our 20-year reunion of our conference championship. I go, I know, you beat the crap out of us. Because that's when I was at Hamilton as the head coach. I left them that year. And I go, yeah, I know you were really good. They're just like, could we like do something? I go, yeah, I'm gonna get you sideline passes. I'm gonna put you in the media guide. We're gonna, you know, we're gonna come
Yeah.
on.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
fun.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have announcements for you at halftime. They're saying, Coach, that's awesome. So that's gonna be a
That's
cool
fun.
night. It's gonna be a really cool night.
Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Do we know the date of homecoming?
It's late. It's October 18th against North Central.
Again,
It's
that
the
might be
last game of the
something
year.
that you may wanna publish from a social media standpoint.
Yeah.
So people have it.
Yep, good idea.
Any other questions or
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm packing up.
comments?
No.
No, you can.
I'm starving.
As we, yeah.
I know
As we
I know we
move on.
talked about it on Monday, but let's get the trophies and the banners and everything in order because the high school is a complete mess, so.
Yeah.
I want you to do that.
You're like talking like the existing hardware on shelves and whatnot.
Yeah, and there's.
It puts the flex are nice and everything. That hallway's beautiful. I
Yeah,
love that.
oh, yeah, the athletic,
Yeah,
the
that's
Hall of Fame,
phenomenal,
yeah,
right?
that's cool,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
gym, like,
Are you talking the
I
ones
mean-
going into the Burgundy gym?
right, yeah,
Okay,
the
so you got the
trophy
one- the
wall in the
trophy-
cafeteria,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
that, and then, you know, the state dance championship banner's not up yet,
Oh,
so. I have
Which
that.
one is?
The state dance championship,
I know the national champion.
the
one
cheer is up, but the
Okay.
dance is
Dance.
up, so I have,
Oh, no,
you know, I'm
I
a little
talked to-
biased about that, but.
I talked to Chelsea about it.
Oh, good,
We're going to possibly unveil it at the homecoming pep
oh,
rally.
very cool.
And I was gonna put a
Hey.
thing over it.
That
That was my idea. That wasn't hers and she loved it.
Yeah, look away.
Yeah.
I need to put a spoiler in there if you're
No, cause
Yeah,
recognition,
spoiler alert.
yeah, cause recognition is key, and I know the kids.
Oh, totally.
He's a dance dad too.
Through and
You're,
through.
you're on the hook for where.
Well, we got the national champions and the state champions on the
That's
website. So if
That's
they're
right.
there, when you click on athletics, it will show up. So,
Fantastic.
yeah, we got that, so.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we got
Thanks
the
for your
Mr.
energy.
Meyer.
Yes.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
John.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for
I'm sure
bringing
we'll
me
have
in.
more questions, but
Yeah.
you're also phenomenal.
Go
Well, you
get some,
can
go get
do
some
some
food. Go get some
Yeah,
food.
exactly, right?
I told the nutrition, when she
Alright, take it
comes,
easy.
she's supposed to bring samples, and she just never does.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, take care. We'll see ya.
Okay, next on the agenda is
Yeah.
communications audit update.
In
Well,
that,
that was a preview a little.
yeah, a little bit of it, so I met with Brian this morning and talked through some of the other things we're doing, but this is really just a snapshot of what they've gotten done so far and kind of where they're going. He is gonna be available for the August 12th board meeting. And ultimately, he's got a couple other things he's still in process of. I know that Mr. Munoz should provide him some high school parent contact information, so he's still gonna be having that as part of his audit next steps as well. But I don't know how much you want me to get into detail on the rest of what we've got on the agenda here, because I know
I know, it
it
is.
is pretty late. And this piece here, I think, is one of those that's real straightforward.
Sure.
I think Brian did
Basically, as long as we know that on the 12th, he'll give us like the overview
Yeah.
of what was done and what will
Yep.
transpire.
I agree.
We don't
Yeah.
need to have that detail.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask in regards to the parent, was there a reason why we only chose high school parents? Was
I
there?
do not know.
Oh,
That's a great question.
just a question, that's all. Okay.
Yeah, unless, really, if it's because they've gone through the whole system.
Probably,
Mhm.
okay,
That
got
makes
it,
sense.
that makes sense. I was just curious, that's all. Nope, that's it.
Alright.
Okay, so we can move on to the safety and security walkthrough.
And on that,
Sarah, can we take 2 minutes for a bathroom break?
Yes,
Or can I just step out?
oh, sure.
Thank you, sorry.
oh, from the presentation?
You can't take it.
You got it, so you don't have to send it out.
I just look at mine.
Or did you want it?
Did you remember?
It's like,
I'm just trying to think here.
I can manage that.
You should be familiar familiar with this, Isabella, right? Cause weren't you the one that did a lot of the safety walks or what?
Oh, yes, I was part of the safety committee. Yep. Still sort of part of it because, so the people that took it, my job was actually split to two people, cause they're like, this is a lot for one person, so. I still do train them, and I think we're going to go to the first couple of them, just to make sure that, people, yeah, exactly, and, just so everybody kind of knows, what the situation is and everything, so. Yeah, but it was fun. Not the OSHA report, though.
I'm sure.
So do you wanna explain what's being passed around?
So coming around are some examples that we'll get to as part of the safety and security walkthroughs. I've also got an agenda. Like I said, this should be good, I know it's on.
I think I.
So really kind of a summation of what you see and what you have in those, in the presentation and then also in that agenda. I met with all the school administrators and walked through each building with all of them and really did a thorough, basically where are we at now, what we're looking at, and really talked through some low-hanging fruit from a safety and security standpoint. There's also what's the WSSCA, which is the Wisconsin's school safety officers for the entire state of Wisconsin. There's an audit I included there. That's actually our last audit that I've gone through for Mosingen High School. But it gives you kind of an example of the process that I utilize when I do these building walkthroughs. And really I use that as a way to spotlight not only good safety and research-based practices, but also this is something that we really need our administrators to have access to. So that is part of our inventory process from a safety audit, and really getting everybody from their crisis teams involved in how to do an audit. And not just in their building, but also to get good enough to do it at other buildings so we can help each other out with it. So again, it's that kind of, it's a shared model so that we've got a lot of brains and a lot of eyes looking at what we wanna see from a safety and security standpoint. On the presentation itself, the things that you have in your packets that Isabella had printed out was the agenda, which is what I met with every principal on, really with bullet pointed, very specific targets as we were gonna meet to go through what we're going to look to put as an ultimate goal, look to put in place before the start of the school year. Now, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and what you saw that just came around starts with something as simple as putting a sticker on the door to let people realize that safety is everyone's job. And kind of a funny connection to that sticker right there is it is deliberate about causing people to talk about it, not necessarily in a positive way. And it's really a sarcastic causer, I guess would be what we're doing. And I'm gonna give you an example. One of the school districts I work for, which shall remain nameless, my first week on the job, I put those on all the outside doors in the entire building. Went to an administrative team meeting and someone there started sarcastically talking about stickers as if this is the dumbest idea to waste money on, which by the way, those were about 50 cents at the time when I bought them, to put on every single one of these outside doors. And she made a comment about it, and we did introductions, and they said, oh, by the way, I'm Dan Halverson, I'm the principal, blah, blah, blah. I'm also the idiot to put those on the doors because, and then I went through the process of why I put those on the doors. This is exactly why I put them on the doors. For this little investment, we now have people thinking and talking about safety and security, and that they're also a member of that. And every time they go in and out that door, they see the exact same thing, which is just kind of a subliminal process that happens. So it's a very simple thing, it's a very cheap thing, it's a low-hanging fruit that really gets people to realize, don't drop the door because that's our weakest point.
Sure.
Any one of the things that can come into our building from that standpoint, from a safety and security standpoint, start with that piece of Swiss cheese we call our door entry system. So that's one of the reasons why we're gonna be doing that here. We're gonna be working with a local vendor that's gonna create those for us. We've already got an inventory for how many doors we need them for in every one of the buildings. And those are gonna get put on either by staff members or by the administrative team, so they can
So
actually.
that in place before school starts?
That's the goal.
And then are you hitting every door or just targeted doors where we know there's?
Every door where there's gonna be an entry or exit, there's gonna at least be one of them. So for example, gymnasiums.
Mhm.
So a gymnasium door, a lot of times you'll prop it open when it's not in that gym.
Yep.
And now you've got an access point violation. So every one of those doors too.
Okay.
Good luck at the high school.
Well, and again, there's a reason why we're doing it. And that's gonna be a conversation point later on down here that you're gonna see too, because there's gonna be some other stickers that are gonna get put on and some modifications that are done too. Cardinal direction usage on doors has been going on forever.
I think it's just one of those, where, like, I think of, and I wanna be able to be practical in how to do this, so just be aware of a scenario. There's 6 AM workouts in the weight room connected to the gym, so as you drive by the side of the high school, you let your student athlete out, they go into the door that's been propped open. I look at it and say, well, that's not very cool, but the reality is what is the alternative? I don't know that we have figured out, like, do the students have access to the front door at 6 AM or is it locked? So I just put that in there to be like, people do it because they don't have another alternative, and we just need to be mindful of
The
coaching
reality.
people through of how do we get the athletes that are going in at 6 AM to do their craft access, so it doesn't become a resistor for pursuing their activity.
Yep, and the Department of Justice actually has guidelines for this, where as long as there's an adult present near a door like that, and it's the same for entries during the school day too. As long as there's an adult present by it, and then this could be an 18-year-old athlete actually, that's a high school student, then we are covered with basically removal of liability for the front door open if something should happen. No matter what happens, we're gonna be liable, and I mean, that's the reality of what we deal with in our jobs.
Yep.
But at the same time, limiting some of the liabilities that could be available are just because of that knowledge. I'll never forget one of the people that were like key members of our crisis team. He was a safety guru, I'm a district safety guy, crisis team, emergency response team, I know everything about it. He had a Saturday, not even school related, but a Saturday basketball practice for his youth basketball team. And I'm sitting in my office watching, I don't remember what I was doing, but I just remember watching him go to the lunchroom and grab one of the chairs to walk over to the front door with that sticker just going right there and prop that door open. And again, like I said, you gotta do this with balance. You can't just come up to someone and start screaming at them, what's wrong with you, blah, blah, blah. You gotta kind of have grace with it. So it becomes just talking points. It becomes, hey, here you are, Captain Safety, and you just dropped our door open. But again, it's coming at it from the standpoint is, the reality is, these things are tough to implement. And one of the things we start dealing with even like making accommodations, and the principals and I have all talked about this. We've got reality of what we do every single day with our kids. And an educational process that we have to follow to make sure that we're giving these kids the best academic progress that we can ever manage. Now we have to have things get in the way of that process that maybe never happened. And when you start talking about locked doors alone in elementary school, locked and shut, that's best practice. And when we talk to the WSSCA, and these guys are professionals at what they do, when they're doing these audits, they won't tell you. I cannot recommend anything other than the best practice is that door shut and locked at all times. You as a team, you as an administrative team, and this is one of the conversations we actually started off with 2 weeks ago, have to make the determination of what you're going to allow, what you're going to say you're okay with. And one of the conversations that we brought up was a little magnet strip in the door. If I'm okay with that door being shut and locked, but I got a little magnet that's gonna be blocking that catch from engaging the keeper on it, am I okay with that from a safety standpoint? Knowing that, again, we're assuming the liability of not having that door to match best practices of being shut and locked, but I've got a 6-year-old kid that needs to go to the bathroom. Now that kid goes to the bathroom, now they gotta come back and forth, and I've got an EA that's coming in, I might have an EL aide coming in. So you've got this constant traffic flow where I'm having to constantly go to the door and unlock it and open, or unlock and open. Or I have to create a process for the kids to be able to do that, so now I'm putting my whole safety of the room in the hands of a younger kid. So there's the reality of what we do to prepare for one single emergency, we pray to God never happens, and then there's reality of what we have to deal with every single day to educate our kids the best. So there's that balancing act, and you know, is every door, and David's great at it, when he does the safety checks and he's going door to door and doing the door prop checks, you know, that's what he's looking for. Not as a gotcha so much as, hey, I just wanna let you know what's going on. And when we were doing even the security audit at the high school, one of the things that I just mentioned was parking along that alley. And parking along that alley now creates an egress issue, should there ever be a fire, an emergency coming down the alley, but everybody does it, because I'm gonna walk all around the front, and I can get in this door right here. That's where I gotta be, I gotta unload something, I gotta take it into the gym, why would I need to carry all this? So there's that reality piece of it. But that was one of the things I mentioned, Dan, I just wanna let you know, the last 4 times I've been here, there's been a red caravan out by that gym door in that alleyway, and it is an egress issue. He's like, yeah, I probably should deal with that, I'm like, it's your call, it's your building. Just know that this is one of the things that when they go through and do this audit, and you as an auditor are going to be saying to yourself, is this something I'm okay with? And what is that level of tolerance when it comes to safety and security that we're okay with, but it's still not gonna put the majority of our people in harm's way?
We also have an insurance company that also checks too and makes sure, so, I mean, that ties into it too, that we probably have some sort of plan and in place.
And the other part that a lot of people, when you say that, you know, with insurance, is a lot of people think everything safety and security related is active shooter based. That's all we're preparing for. It's not that. I walk down the hallway and there's a crack on the floor, that might be a trip hazard. There's a higher probability of that trip hazard happening than preparing for that active shooter drill. So there's that piece of safety and security too that comes as part of this audit process. You know, a big one that we kind of go back and forth on here is asbestos abatement. Asbestos abatement is a huge cost incurrement that usually has to come out over a 10-year or 15-year process to abate it. We've got issues with that we're gonna have to somehow, at some point in time, address, and one school in particular, very directly. And I know that's on Chris's radar for getting that dealt with, but that's something that generally will show up in an operational referendum standpoint, because you can't just come in and shovel off the asbestos and throw it in the dumpster. You have a full abatement team, and you gotta shut things down, and you have to have all that in place. So I think it's a great part of this audit process. And being able to realize how much some of these things are gonna be.
Yeah.
So as you look at the presentation itself, I really didn't want to, like, there's a lot of things, but we wanted to talk about some short-term things that we can take care of, and then there are some long-term things. Obviously, the asbestos abatement is one of the long-term things that we really need to take care of. But then there's a short-term things like the stickers and high visibility vests. The flip chart is something that we're currently working on as well. And one of the things that came up, we currently use an emergency response protocol from the organization I Love You Guys. So if you've been in the buildings, you see those yellow posters that are up with the 5 or 6 step process for should there be an evacuation need. This is not meant to replace that so much as it's meant to enhance that process. So when you look at a flip chart like that, and we're gonna be also implementing, which Isabella and I finished off today, every single room's gonna have the flip chart like that in it. You're gonna have tornado and fire evacuation maps in it. As soon as you come to the door, and they're not gonna be in writing, it's gonna be a graphic that you can see, and it's gonna be a map.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have, the flip charts are gonna be along with a go bag. And with that go bag are certain emergency preparation items for every single classroom in the district. And the majority of the offices. That's gonna be a standard protocol that we're gonna utilize in every single one of the buildings, along with the common announcement that you had there too. So all those things are meant to systematically standardize, if I'm in this building, I'm not
It's all
gonna
the
do anything
same,
different.
yeah.
Because one of the biggest weak points that we can have is, I'm a substitute teacher and I'm working in the building and I have no idea what our safety protocols are. This reactor system might be a great tool that we're using, which is another thing we're evaluating. Maybe a great tool we're using, but I'm a substitute teacher, I'm not on the district reactor system. So what do I do in an emergency? And now we've got a process that's in place for that everyone's standard uses too, so. Isabella's, I'm gonna echo what John said, Isabella's awesome. She has been
great.
just solid in every single thing that we ever need help with, she is just on it, so.
Well, and she's new to her gig too, so the fact that you're adjusting and bringing some folks along with you is incredible, so
Yeah.
good work.
Absolutely.
What is the number one issue that you see with school safety right now in either one particular building or all buildings combined, or
What you like, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, what's the number one
Uniformity,
problem?
uniformity.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna bring in specifics like which school is better prepared or any of that stuff.
Right.
But as you look at the uniformity of what we've got across the board, we've got some really, really great stuff going on in all the buildings. And we've got some really, really great stuff going on in one or two of the buildings. And then we've got some stuff that we gotta look at, and then we got some stuff that we need to look at all across the board.
Okay.
But from my standpoint, I think the emergency preparedness starts with, and again, this, for me, this is one of those low hanging fruits, but it's training intensive. And that's really having those critical medical response teams in place in every school. We've got crisis response teams in every school, which if something happens, they're gonna be responding. But now I have a student that has a seizure, which happened last year, multiple times in multiple schools, what do we do about it? Nurses assistant, great, trained, but now that nurse assistant is on the first floor and I've got an emergency evaluator on the third floor in the far corner that who can I use it to get there? So having people that are in those crisis or emergency or medical response teams that can deal with that and have the training for it is gonna be something that this year we're gonna be working on. Jason's got the training set up for CPR, AED, and I believe first aid through the fire department right now for our green team. It overlaps with other training that we've already got in place from curricular instruction, but we're gonna be doing that throughout the whole year so we can get all those crisis teams trained too. And really utilizing our nurses for that training too. I'm gonna be meeting with them next week. And they are, I think, gonna be a critical tool in how we train every single building by building for those crisis teams. So when you look at those common additional needs on that last slide, those are really, you know, those are really the big ones. And the costly one is those AEDs. And then somehow being able to utilize freighter, we did get a grant for stop the bleed kits this year, the nurses put that through, we just got approved like 2 weeks ago, which is cool. But like looking at an AED process, even larger scale, being able to get all staff trained in CPR and AED. And I do know that there's organizations that wanna do that and help out, whether it's Red Cross or, you know, there are ones out there that do that.
I know the YMCA offers that too, so.
In Pewaukee, we had and I couldn't remember the name of the organization, it was a private organization, they help fund hand sanitizers and AEDs for all of our buildings on our campus. And for the life of me, I can't remember how we ended up with it. I do know that there was a nurse, one of our nurses for the district, that retired, that was part of that process, but that was one of the things I was gonna try to follow up with my old boss, who's now retired, and change his phone number to, so I couldn't bother. But that was one of the people I was gonna try to
Change my phone
contact,
number,
and see
I'm done.
if, you know, we can get a hold of me.
I'm really going off the grid.
But again, just like nutrition, there are things worth putting money into.
Right.
AED
Yeah,
is,
AED is one of them.
I mean,
If we get a main go bag and every one of the offices has a mobile AED, we're gonna be, just like that, we're more mobile for an emergency situation. Right now, I think it, you know, it came up with our interviews, the space concerns and how those are dealt with at certain buildings. We have an elementary school with 3 floors where the AED is by the gymnasium, which is great if there's an emergency for a rec person that has a heart attack during a late night basketball game. But what if it's a staff member that's on the 3rd floor? So not only I'm gonna be responding from the main office, have to go all the way down to the gymnasium to respond and get the AED. Now, unless someone's CPR trained up here that's maybe keeping that going, I limited that opportunity for cutting time down on the response.
Sure.
So I think that's one of those big ticket items that I think it might be important to look at funding. I really do.
Well, as you know, we have with our financial planning that we put in place and the fund, I forget what it is, where we start
Fund
funding. Where we start doing the funding in advance, like we're frozen for 5 years and then we can start doing it. We had to do strategic planning around and put together like a financial commitment and looking at the project. So depending on where this falls, be talking with David in terms of how does this prioritize over some of the other inventory that we review as part of that work.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be critical.
It's unfortunate because, you know, I think what I found in the district, not to fault anybody, but there hasn't been this departmental on nutrition, there's just actually many, that there wasn't continuity, right? There's district-wide continuity, from every aspect. And so I think this feels like a huge lift because they've never done it.
Yeah.
But I think in situations like the safety aspect, that is critical, that is important.
Just
I
going
think that
through
is something
something
that is-
systematically.
that is worth investing into. You know, nutrition is the other one, and so I would definitely encourage for us to get, and once it's up and running, then it'll be easy.
Yeah, it sounds like
It's
it.
just that,
Yeah, and you get the processes in place for the training, you get a calendar, you get it scheduled, and honestly, Isabel and I are dealing with something similar to communication. You know, and separate from this and separate from the Donovan group is, there's things that are needing to get put in place, back to the websites, back to our social media platforms. That because of that break in leadership, that break in continuity, we're gonna be having to deal with those in a more rapid manner. And even, I mean, this was as of today, we started looking at this one, we don't have a timeline for any of these communication pieces well, because neither one of us knew that it was there. We, the famous phrase is, we don't know what we don't know. We're finding out, thank goodness, we've got people that are telling us in a polite, professional manner that, hey, just so you know, this is something we need to work on. And the principals have been great with keeping us up to speed on what their admin assistants need for the start of the school year. Even like Kara today, Hostetler was sharing information about what we need for our data verification. And we don't have that stuff communicated out, she stepped up and did that for us.
It's on the high school sign.
See, and that's,
So I saw it when I was sitting at the stoplight, I was like, oh, that's right, I have to go through and do that. So I'm waiting for the email that's like coming soon, so it's working.
What are your thoughts on incentives for the teachers that do get trained in AED or CPR or?
you know, that's a good point, because
Give them a bigger PTO.
the amazing thing to me is, every time I've ever done this, I have more volunteers wanting to be on that medical response team than volunteer for any other committee that I've ever run.
That's awesome.
And you, like, you'll ask for a volunteer, you wanna put together a committee to do, the scheduling. You wanna look at a different alternative scheduling, going from an 8-period day to a block schedule. Maybe 3 people involved, and usually you'll get one person who hates the thought of going to a block schedule, you get one person who's really on board with going to a block schedule, and then you'll get one person that's like, well, I needed to fulfill my curriculum hours, so I need something to do to get those hours in to be on a committee. I put out for emergency response team or a medical response team, and I have 15, 16 people volunteering, and some of them with some medical experience, volunteer EMTs and things like that.
Because they care about the kids and their staff.
They really do.
Yeah.
And that's where it's kind of like, it boils down to, it's your first responder feel to it, you know? But there's no drawback to offering incentives, I can tell you, even if it means like you get, you know, we would have dinner that our emergency response team would go out for.
Sure,
And I would-
thank you for,
Yep, I just take them out and they're like, let's go, we'll go to a local establishment, have some food and thing.
Yeah.
Make it more of a relaxed culture building, team building type thing.
Or a couple extra days of PTO or something.
Yeah, it's something, you know, just anything to incentivize it, hey, all right, thank you.
I was gonna say
Right.
more
Yeah,
than
more
thank you
thank
and
you.
appreciate you.
Right.
Just
Up and out.
thank you for putting the time in
Yeah.
and being willing to help out our kids and stuff like that, for sure.
Great.
Cool.
any other questions
Oh, that's fantastic.
or concerns on the safety and security? Okay. Moving on, student behaviorals, so the quarterly check-ins.
And we've had some conversations about this, we're gonna be doing a different process and we're getting more specific, I'm not gonna say, we're getting more specific with it, I'm trying to say specificity,
Right.
whatever that word. We're gonna get more specific on what it is we're measuring. And when you look at what we wanna fix as far as a behavioral issue, you gotta know what it is, a major, a minor, okay, what is it? We don't really have a clear picture of what those things are. So really what we're gonna be looking at, and this is part of the next agenda item on here as well,
Yep.
attendance and log entries.
Yep.
So I've got a team of volunteers we're gonna be putting together from a power school standpoint for log entries, and then we also got another volunteer group for attendance committee. The attendance committee is a little more critical because that's something that's gonna be measured directly by the state on their state reports. So we're gonna be starting that hopefully next week. I did put out an email bringing in a whole bunch of people on our team so that we can actually look at what our attendance codes are to start with. We're gonna be pulling one off the bat right away. We've already discussed that in one meeting. But we're gonna be looking at how can we systematically have those attendance codes be the same across the board, school to school. From a state standpoint, they really don't care what our codes are. They care if you're excused or you're unexcused, and they care if you're present. And that's really the only things that the state cares about. So
Yeah.
when we look at what we're doing from our standpoint, we know that that's our baseline. What are the things we need to make our job better, but what are our jobs to make it more clear for what we have an issue with? If we have an issue with tardies unexcused, when, where, how, who? How can we help that individual student, or if it's a pattern thing, how can we fix that large scale? We have a transportation issue, we have is there a busing problem, is there a location problem? So those are the things that we're gonna do a little bit differently. That's what's gonna be moving forward as part of our quarterly check-ins. Once we get that process shored up, then we can identify where are the areas we wanna work on. You know, do we have a physical assault problem? Do we have a vaping problem? Yeah.
Right.
I can tell you right now, no matter where you go, we got a vaping problem. So I think that those things coming out of how we shape what we're looking for are gonna make it a little bit we can do the quarterly check-ins, and that's gonna be part of the process, and that's Sharon and I are talking about. Is really, it's like, we've got dashboards and we've got tech people ready to go on it, we don't have to pay anyone to do this, PowerSchool is
Just
ready.
utilize it.
Let's use it. And then it'll help our buildings really set, like, what are our behavior goals? We got academic goals, we know what we wanna do academic goals, reading and math, we know that's an easy target we wanna hit. But from a behavioral standpoint, what are the things that are getting in the way of our reading and math? So how can we work on those with specifics, not just majors and minors, which is language that came from, I won't get too specific, but it's a language that came from a purchased product that utilizes that system of breakdowns, it convolutes things. Give me specifics, I wanna know what we need to fix.
Sure.
So, and that's our building.
I like it.
Well, and
Yeah.
we actually came across that as a board where we were looking at data for prior years of being able to say, can you tell us what the difference is? And then the subjectivity came down to the person that was actually doing the report. And so we knew that there was probably some process improvement, some training improvement to be able to say from a district standpoint, how do we wanna manage this? Because ultimately, to your point, we wanna fix the outcome
Right.
and prevent the outcome and reduce the numbers in general, but if you don't know what root cause is, how do you have the data to actually make the track? So thank you for the overall.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm glad to do it because to me, when I've gone round and round with that company being utilized because
Sure.
it's not free. And when you have a limited high school budget, when you're paying $10 a student on 1,100 kids for your slice of that pie that you can't use,
Sure.
I have problems with that.
Mhm.
So when you look at how we can do it and use the tools that we're already paying a substantial fund for our student information system, we've got the tools here, let's use that instead.
Yeah.
So that's part of the process, I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, and I like that, and I like the fact that, as we go forward with, Student Services Committee here and what other things we want to get into those check-ins and, essentially turning, you have a schedule, a yearly update, walkthrough of this is what we're doing for our students.
And then you can provide it to the students, so they're part of the process too, what you wanna work on, our top five.
Right.
Top five, what are our top three things you wanna work on? So-
Yeah. Absolutely, thank you.
But that was a long meeting, everybody, and
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Really quickly, kind of
Oh, yeah.
related.
Yeah.
I have a friend who lives in a community in Dane County, Southwest Madison, smaller community. But their school board voted to put, vaping sensors in the bathrooms. And ironically, the friend, who sponsored it, was on the school board and apparently his daughter was one of the first ones that got busted by it. Ironically though, they fixed their vaping problem. So I don't know if that's on your roadmap or where you're at, but as a board member, given that we're talking about services
Absolutely,
and budgets,
yeah.
that is a particular pain point for the high school. I don't know how bad it is at North yet. But I do know that students entering North, or the high school, specifically freshmen or new students, struggle with, which is the bathroom that I should use because of the amount of vaping taking place. So I realize that we have a variety of topics that we can chase down. I don't know where this falls. All I'll say is, I think this would be a big one that would go a far way in the community to be able to address. And I have no idea what it costs or who offers the service. Putting it out there is something that you probably already have a pulse on, but if not,
I'll share a couple stories. So we utilized a trial run on the vape detector, which I can tell you from a school standpoint, it's very similar to other issues that you get. We could do this all day long. We could be vape chasers, we could be I could chase down hats, I could chase down all sorts of different things, and that would be my job instead of educational growth for their students. We installed a vape detector, and it was a trial run. It's a $9,000 piece of equipment to put in the bathroom, so that trigger in the office, and then you get a notification. By the time you get down there, they're gone. And by the time you get down to the cameras, you got 4 people leaving the bathroom, so now you got a detection system that the alternative is you establish relationships with students. You got someone vaping in the bathroom, 5 seconds later, they're down in their office, they're telling us, there's somebody vaping in the bathroom. And you get that set up so that it's a common culture that if I'm gonna do something stupid at school, regardless if it's
Somebody's
vaping
gonna
or
find out.
chewing or weed in the parking lot, someone's gonna know.
Right.
And getting that comfort level where you're a snitch, that goes away. And what works the best is incentivizing that through pay. We have had the Crime Stopper process through every single school I've been at.
That's
And-
awesome.
And with Marathon County, we did it to a point where now Marathon County was sponsoring that program for us at our school.
That's awesome.
So I look at the vape detection device, it was funny because this is the humor of the story. You're waiting for it, it was coming. So we put these devices in the bathroom. And of course, the company wants to be discreet, so they put Wi-Fi enhancer as a sticker on the bottom of this thing, which I thought was absolutely hilarious as soon as I saw it. I'm like, this is going to be good. High school kids, they're
Oh my God, there's a Wi-Fi, let me stand next to it.
So, as soon as it happened, they knew right away that they're vape detectors, but then they would come, Mr. Halvers, that sure is a neat idea that you had to put Wi-Fi extenders in all of our bathrooms. I said, well, you know, boys, you spend most of the time on your phone in the bathroom anyways, we wanted to make sure that you were taking care of your academics. It was just,
My
the
God.
fun that the conversation
Oh
of
my
that one
gosh.
little thing
That's
led to in that
hilarious.
building was unbelievable. But again, it didn't stop the
My-
problem.
I didn't go to 2 bars, what's going on with my Wi-Fi? They're not working.
I'm trying to watch the YouTube.
I'm just, yeah,
It was just, it didn't have it had the anticipated thing that
People paid attention, they saw it.
and they talked about it,
Yep.
which was the win.
Kind of like the sticker.
You got it.
well, do we have anything out of curiosity, and again, not to go too late here, but just a thought before I forget to ask. Support for helping students quit vaping.
Yep, that was another part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as part of our, and
For
it
somebody
wasn't,
who is like, I mean, they're struggling, you know, it's an addiction, helping them
get off of nicotine.
get off of nicotine and,
So that was part of our process too, so coming into it, we had consequences established in the front end where if you do this, you're caught, this is what's gonna happen.
Sure.
So it's logical consequence, we're not gonna punch you in the face, but you need to understand you can't be vaping.
right,
So when you come in and you're vape, here's what your consequence is gonna be, and we communicate this with all the kids very directly at every single class meeting, we're very straightforward, if you're doing this, this is what's gonna happen. If you do it again, this is what's gonna happen, if you do it again, this is what's gonna happen. And as part of that progression is obviously this progressive discipline model, so it's getting worse for this person. However, their nicotine addiction
is real.
is real.
Yep.
So you're also starting to implement some sort of treatment in the background of,
Okay.
okay, let's get you to get some nicotine cessation
Yep.
processes in place. The potency of these vapes it's ridiculous.
It's
And not just
astronomical,
from a nicotine
from what I
standpoint, but even
understand,
THC standpoint. We're talking 95-98% THC content in some of these basic vapes these kids are taking.
Yeah.
And they're showing up comatose when we're trying to diagnose them medically, what's this problem with this kid? So I think that there's some very real problems from a treatment standpoint that are gonna need to get addressed in addition to the consequence standpoint.
Right.
We can't have kids vaping 15, 20 times
Right.
in a bathroom and getting caught.
Right.
Without some sort of logical consequence, because now you're impacting the education process of other people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's get you to treatment, you don't need to be around the other people until this treatment takes place. And at the same time, we're gonna try to provide you an alternative education setting so that we're not gonna have that influence on other people that are in the building.
Sure,
So I think there's that piece of the
Thank you.
puzzle that a lot of
Yeah.
times we're missing. People wanna take care of kids, we all do, that's why we do what we do.
right,
But we wanna take care of all the kids, and we got a responsibility to everybody, not just the one kid that's got a drug problem or a nicotine addiction too.
Right. absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Okay, any future agenda items? Committee people? No? Nope. Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion, our meeting is adjourned at 8:23 p.m.
We can't run that.
One of us?
Are we setting our next meeting?
Oh.
We can do it after.